The moment my own daughter pointed at me in front of 300 people and said, "She's nothing but an embarrassment," I wished the floor would
I told
open
you not
beneath
to
my
say a
feet.
word, and now
I
look
lowered
what
my
you've done.
eyes, ready
You
to walk away
always ruin
forever.
everything.
Then, before I could reach the exit, the master of ceremonies stopped the entire event with one sentence that changed every face in the room. Would Margaret Ellis please come to the
Please join
stage?
me in
Tonight's
honoring a
Lifetime
true
Compassion
pillar of our
Award belongs
community,
to you.
a woman whose
The silence
kindness
that
has
followed
touched us
was
all.
louder than my
This
daughter's
award
voice.
goes to Mrs. Wilma graciously.
If this story touches your heart, I'd love for you to stay with me until the end. Please, like this video if you believe kindness never goes unnoticed. Subscribe if stories of hope and family mean something to you, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd also love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. It always reminds me that we're never truly alone, no matter how far apart we are. My name is Margaret Ellis, and by the time I turned 68, I had learned that people rarely look closely at an old woman unless they need something from her. They notice the slow walk. They notice the gray hair. They notice the second-hand cardigan, the careful coupons tucked inside a purse, the way a woman like me counts change at the grocery store before placing a loaf of bread on the counter. But they do not notice the stories inside her hands. My hands had bathed feverish children, lifted weak patients from hospital beds, held my husband's face on the last morning he could still whisper my name, and carried hundreds of warm meals across icy sidewalks in Columbus, Ohio. But to my daughter, Emily, those hands were only proof that I had never become anything impressive. Emily Parker was my only child. I loved her with the kind of love that had no pride in it, no limit, no condition. When she was little, she had curls the color of honey and a laugh that could make my tired bones forget a 12-hour shift. I used to come home from Riverside Care Center smelling like antiseptic and laundry soap, and she would run to me barefoot shouting, "Mama, you're home." Back then, she did not care if my shoes were worn down. She did not care if our kitchen table had one uneven leg or if I packed her school lunches in reused bread bags, because we could not afford the pretty cartoon ones. To her, I was the whole world. Somewhere along the way, that changed. Maybe it happened when she married Mark Parker, a financial consultant who wore watches worth more than my first car. Maybe it happened when she started hosting brunches with women who said words like legacy branding and social circle as if kindness itself needed a public relations team. Or maybe it happened slowly, one small embarrassment at a time, until my daughter began looking at me the way strangers looked at peeling paint on an old porch. Useful once, unattractive now. Emily lived in a polished brick house in Dublin, one of those quiet Ohio suburbs where every lawn looked like it had been combed by hand. Her driveway curved like a ribbon. Her kitchen had white marble counters that she warned me not to stain. Her living room had furniture so pale and stiff, I always felt guilty sitting down. I lived 25 minutes away in the small yellow house my husband Henry had bought with me when we were young enough to believe work and love could fix anything. The porch sagged a little. The upstairs window stuck in July. The maple tree out front dropped leaves faster than I could rake them. But every corner of that house still held Henry's voice. Emily hated that house. "It smells old, Mom," she told me once, standing in my doorway with sunglasses on top of her head and disappointment pressed into her mouth. "You really should let me help you modernize." By modernize, she meant sell, but I never said that out loud. I had spent most of my life as a nursing assistant. Not a doctor, not a registered nurse, not someone who had letters after her name or a framed degree behind a desk. I was the woman who changed sheets, cleaned wounds, helped patients eat, and listened when they were afraid at 2 a.m. I did work that mattered, but it was the kind of work people only noticed when nobody did it. When Henry died 8 years earlier from a heart condition that had crept up on us like a thief, my world became very quiet. Emily came by after the funeral with a casserole from a grocery store and stayed exactly 40 minutes. She said she wished she could do more, but Lily had dance class, and Mark had a client dinner. Lily was my granddaughter. She was 14 when this story began, thin and thoughtful, with soft brown eyes that noticed everything her mother tried to hide. Lily still hugged me like I mattered. Sometimes, that hug was the only thing that carried me through the week. Every Sunday, I went to Emily's house for dinner because she said family should have traditions. But traditions, I learned, can become performances. I was expected to arrive on time, bring something simple but not too country speak warmly, but not too much, and avoid saying anything that might reveal how differently I lived. One Sunday evening, I brought a peach cobbler in the same glass dish I had used for 30 years. The crust had turned golden, and the filling bubbled at the edges sweet with cinnamon and butter. Henry used to say that cobbler could make a bad day apologize. Emily opened the door, looked at the dish in my hands, and forced a smile. "Oh, Mom, you didn't have to bring that." "I know," I said. "I wanted to. Lily likes it." From the dining room, Lily called Grandma's cobbler. I smiled for the first time all day. "Yes, baby." Emily lowered her voice. "We're trying to cut sugar. And gluten. I told you that last month." I looked down at the dish. I must have forgotten. She sighed as though my forgetting was a personal attack. "It's fine." "Well, put it in the kitchen, not on the table." "In the kitchen." That was how Emily handled me. She never threw me away completely. She just placed me out of sight. At dinner, Mark talked about a fundraiser gala coming up for a charity organization called Haven House Outreach. Emily sat beside him glowing with pride. She had recently joined the gala committee, though I knew she cared less about the cause than the guest list. "There will be donors there, city council members, hospital board people," she said, lifting her wine glass. "It's a very important room." "A room can't be important," I said gently. "Only the people in it." Mark chuckled, but Emily did not. She looked at me with that tight smile she used when I had embarrassed her. "That's sweet, Mom, but not really how the world works." I folded my napkin in my lap and said nothing. Then Lily asked Grandma, "Haven't you heard of Haven House?" My fingers tightened around my fork. Just slightly. "I've heard of it," I said. Emily barely looked at me. "It's a shelter and outreach program for women and children. Very meaningful work. We're helping them expand their services." "That's good," I said. "They do important work." Emily blinked at me. "You sound like you know them." I took a sip of water. "Only a little." That was not a lie. Not exactly, but it was not the truth either. The truth was, every Saturday morning before sunrise, I put on my old blue coat, packed my trunk with grocery bags, and drove across town to a plain brick building behind a Methodist church. There, women came in with bruises hidden under makeup. Children came in wearing shoes too small, and volunteers moved quietly because pain does not always need loud words. To them, I was not Margaret Ellis Emily Parker's inconvenient mother. I was Miss Maggie. Miss Maggie made soup when donations were low. Miss Maggie hemmed donated pants for job interviews. Miss Maggie sat with frightened children while their mothers filled out paperwork. Miss Maggie remembered birthdays nobody else knew about. Miss Maggie had a key to the side entrance and a list of women who might need help before they were brave enough to ask. But Emily did not know that. Not because I was ashamed. Because some acts of love grow better in silence. Years earlier, Henry and I had made a promise that if we ever had more than we needed, even a little more, we would use it to help people who had nowhere safe to go. After he died, I kept that promise the only way I knew how. Quietly. Consistently. Without applause. Emily thought my Saturdays were for laundry church rummage sales and old lady errands. She never asked. She only assumed. That night at dinner, Mark mentioned that the gala would honor several community partners. Emily leaned toward me and said, "Mom, I may need you to come, just as family support. I looked up, surprised. You want me there? She hesitated 1 second too long. Of course, you're my mother. Lily smiled. You should come, Grandma. It'll be fun. Emily reached across the table and touched my sleeve. But we'll need to find you something appropriate to wear. There it was. The little knife wrapped in silk. I looked down at my cardigan, pale lavender clean, but old. I have a navy dress. Emily's mouth tightened. The one from Dad's funeral? My chest went still. No, I said softly. Another one. She leaned back. Well, figure it out. After dinner, while Mark loaded plates into the dishwasher, and Emily answered messages on her phone, Lily followed me to the front hall. Grandma? She whispered. Don't let Mom make you feel bad. I touched her cheek. Your mother wants things to look nice. That's all. Lily looked older than 14 in that moment. Sometimes she cares more about how things look than how people feel. I wanted to defend Emily. Mothers do that even when their children hurt them. We build shelters out of excuses and sit inside them until the walls collapse. She's busy, I said. Lily did not argue. She only hugged me. On the drive home, the streets were dark and glossy from a recent rain. My headlights slid across mailboxes, trimmed hedges, and closed garage doors. I thought about Emily's face when I said I had heard of Haven House. There had been suspicion there, but not curiosity. My daughter could not imagine a life of mine that did not orbit around hers. When I reached my house, I sat in the car for a moment before going inside. The porch light flickered above me. Through the front window, I could see the small table where Henry used to sit with his coffee and crossword puzzle. I could almost hear him saying, Maggie, don't let anyone make you small. Not even someone you love. I carried my purse inside, placed the untouched cobbler on the counter, and opened the refrigerator. On the top shelf were 3 foil-covered trays of chicken casserole for Saturday's meal service. Beside them sat a stack of labeled containers, green beans, mashed potatoes, apple slices. I smiled sadly. Emily thought I had nothing to offer. But the next morning, before the sun came up, my phone buzzed with a message from Rachel at Haven House. Miss Maggie, we need you this Saturday. A young mother arrived tonight with 2 children. She asked if the lady with the warm hands was still here. I read the message twice. Then I pressed the phone to my chest and closed my eyes. Nobody in my daughter's beautiful dining room knew where I went every Saturday. Nobody knew why women hugged me in grocery stores. Nobody knew why strangers sometimes whispered thank you when they passed me on the street. And Emily, most of all, had no idea that the charity gala she wanted to use for status was about to bring my hidden life into the light. The first time Emily told me I was embarrassing her, she did not use those exact words. She was too polished for that. My daughter had learned how to wrap cruelty in concern, how to make a wound look like advice. She would tilt her head, soften her voice, and say something like, Mom, I'm only trying to help you, right before she made me feel smaller than a child. It happened 3 weeks before the Haven House Gala. I had gone to her house on a Tuesday afternoon because Lily had called me from school, whispering from the girls' bathroom that she had forgotten the girls' bathroom, that she had forgotten her history project on the kitchen counter. Mom will kill me, she said, her voice trembling. She won't kill you, baby, I told her. She'll just be disappointed for 5 minutes and then move on, her history project on the kitchen counter. Mom will kill me, she said, her voice trembling. She won't kill you, baby, I told her. She'll just be disappointed for 5 minutes and then move on. No, Lily said. You don't understand. She said this project has to be perfect because Mrs. Dalton knows people on the school board. I closed my eyes. A history project had become a performance too. So I drove to Emily's house, used the spare key under the ceramic rabbit by the side door, and found Lily's poster board leaning against a chair. It was beautiful. Neat lines, handwritten notes, little printed photographs of women who had changed American history. At the bottom, Lily had written, "Courage is doing good when nobody claps." I stood there for a moment, reading that sentence. Then I smiled. That sounded like Lily. Or maybe if I allowed myself to believe it, it sounded like something she had learned from me. I was about to leave when Emily walked in through the garage door, carrying 2 garment bags over one arm and a phone pressed between her ear and shoulder. "Yes, the gold sponsorship package is confirmed," she said into the phone. "And no, I don't want our table near the kitchen doors. Mark has several clients coming. We need visibility." She stopped when she saw me. Her smile vanished so quickly it almost made a sound. "I'll call you back," she said, then ended the call. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "Lily forgot her project," I said, lifting the poster board carefully. "She called me." Emily's eyes narrowed. "She called you? She was upset. She should have called me. She didn't want to bother you. That was the wrong thing to say." Emily placed the garment bags over the back of a chair. "I'm her mother. She doesn't bother me." I did not answer, because both of us knew that was not always true. Her gaze dropped to my coat. It was the blue one I wore to Haven House, faded at the sleeves, with a small patch near the pocket where I had stitched a tear myself. "Mom," she said slowly, "please tell me you don't wear that in public." I looked down. It's warm. It looks like something from a donation bin. The words hit too close to a truth she did not know. I folded Lily's project under my arm. "It still keeps out the wind." Emily rubbed her forehead as if my coat had personally given her a migraine. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. What are you talking about? The gala, the photos, the people who will be there." She walked to the garment bags and unzipped one with a sharp motion. Inside was a silver dress that shimmered like ice. "This is not some church potluck, Mom. I know that. Do you?" She looked at me, and for a second, I saw not my little girl, but a woman terrified of being associated with anything ordinary. Because sometimes you act like appearances don't matter. They don't matter as much as people. "That sounds nice," she said, "but it's not realistic." I held Lily's project tighter. "Emily, I'm not asking to be the center of attention. No, but you might become it for the wrong reasons." There it was again, not shouted, not screamed, just placed between us like a cold plate. I swallowed. What wrong reasons? She looked uncomfortable, which meant some small part of her knew she was being unkind. "Mom, you're sweet. You really are. But you don't always understand how to carry yourself in certain environments." "I carried myself through 32 years of double shifts," I said quietly. "I carried your father through his illness. I carried you when you had pneumonia and slept upright for 4 nights so you could breathe easier." Her face changed, but only for a second. "That's not what I mean." "I know what you mean." Silence filled her beautiful kitchen. The marble counters shone. The chrome faucet gleamed. A vase of white tulips sat on the island arranged so perfectly, they looked afraid to wilt. Everything in that kitchen had been chosen to say something about Emily. Nothing in it said warmth. She sighed. "I don't want to fight. Neither do I." "Then let me help you. I made an appointment for you at a boutique next Friday. They have tasteful dresses for women your age." Women your age? I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because pain sometimes looks for strange doors to escape through. "I have clothes. Mom, 1 navy dress, 1 black dress, 1 pair of good shoes. The navy dress is outdated. It fits. That's not enough." I looked at my daughter and wondered when enough had become such a moving target. When Emily was 7, enough had been a grilled cheese sandwich cut into triangles. When she was 12, enough had been me clapping too loudly at her school choir concert. When she was 19 and crying in her college dorm because she missed home, enough had been my voice on the phone telling her she was stronger than she felt. Now enough required a stylist. Emily, I said I'll come to your gala. I'll be clean. I'll be polite. I'll sit wherever you tell me to sit, but I will not pretend to be ashamed of myself. She turned away, pretending to examine the silver dress. Nobody is asking you to be ashamed. No. You're asking me to be invisible. Her shoulders stiffened. For once, I had said the quiet thing out loud. Before she could respond, Lily rushed in through the front door, breathless from school, her backpack bouncing against her hip. Grandma, did you get it? I lifted the project, safe and sound. Lily ran to me and hugged me around the waist. I could feel Emily watching us. Thank you, Lily said. You saved me. I kissed the top of her head. You saved yourself when you did the work. Lily pulled back and looked from me to her mother. Is everything okay? Emily smiled too quickly. Of course. Grandma and I were just talking about the gala. Oh, Lily said. Grandma, you're coming. I believe so. You have to sit by me. Emily's smile tightened. We'll see about the seating chart. Lily frowned. Why wouldn't she sit by us? Because they're our sponsors, honey. These things are complicated. They're only complicated because adults make them that way, Lily muttered. I pressed my lips together to keep from smiling. Emily heard her. Excuse me. Nothing, but it was not nothing. Lily had begun noticing the shape of things. She noticed how her mother corrected my grammar if I said ain't jokingly. She noticed how Mark changed the subject when I talked about my patients from the care center. She noticed how Emily introduced me to certain friends as my mom Margaret, but to important people as Margaret Ellis, leaving out the word mother, as if it were too heavy to carry. That afternoon, I drove Lily's project to school, while Emily stayed home with her garment bags and her phone calls. Lily asked if I could stop for hot chocolate on the way. Don't tell Mom, she said. I don't like secrets. It's not a bad secret. I glanced at her. Secrets get heavy, even the small ones. She looked down at her hands. Do you have secrets, Grandma? The question came so suddenly that I nearly missed the turn. A few, I said. Good ones or bad ones? I thought of Haven House. I thought of the women who trusted me because I never turned their pain into gossip. I thought of the young mother Rachel had mentioned in her message, the one who asked for the lady with warm hands. Some secrets are just promises wearing coats, I said. Lily smiled faintly. That sounds like something you'd write in a book. I don't write books. You should. At the school, she took the project from me, but did not get out right away. Grandma? Yes, Mom doesn't mean to be mean. I looked through the windshield at students crossing the parking lot, laughing, texting, living inside lives they did not yet know could break. I know, I said, but I was no longer sure that was true. Lily's eyes filled with worry. She just wants everyone to think we're okay. That's a hard way to live. Are we okay? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to give her the simple comfort children deserve. But Lily was old enough to recognize a lie, and young enough to be hurt by one. We're still here, I said. Sometimes that's where okay begins. She hugged me quickly, then ran toward the school doors with her project held against her chest. I sat in the car after she left, my hands resting on the steering wheel. Across town, there were women at Haven House who had been humiliated in louder ways than I had. Women whose families had abandoned them. Women who had been told they were worthless until they almost believed it. I had spent years telling them that nobody else's cruelty could name them. Yet there I was, letting my own daughter rename me every Sunday. Old, outdated, embarrassing, a burden waiting to happen. That evening, Emily called me. "I sent you the boutique address," she said. "Please don't make this difficult. I'll look at it." "No, Mom. I need you to go. This gala matters to me." There was a time when those words would have been enough. If something mattered to Emily, I would bend until my back nearly broke. That is what mothers do when love and guilt get tangled together. But something in me was tired. "Does it matter because of the charity?" I asked, "or because of who will see you supporting it?" She went silent. Then she laughed once, cold and short. "That's unfair. Is it? I work hard for my reputation, and I worked hard for my life." "I didn't say you didn't." "No," I said. "You just act like it doesn't count." Her breath sharpened through the phone. "I'm not doing this with you." "Then don't." Another silence. When she spoke again, her voice had lowered. "Just go to the appointment, Mom. Please. For once, let me handle things. For once." As if she had not been handling me for years. I looked toward the refrigerator where Saturday's food trays waited. In 2 days, I would stand in a shelter kitchen wearing sneakers and an apron serving women who did not care whether my dress was outdated. They cared whether I looked them in the eyes. They cared whether I remembered their children's names. They cared whether I meant it when I said, "You are safe here." "I'll come to the gala," I said, "but I'll choose my own dress." "Mom, my own dress, Emily." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "Fine. But don't blame me if people stare." After she hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen with the phone in my lap. People stare, I thought. Yes, they do. They stare at women who are too old, too poor, too plain, too quiet, too broken, too honest, too difficult to decorate. But sometimes people also stare because the truth has entered the room and they were not prepared for its face. I did not know then that at the gala everyone would stare. I only knew that my daughter was beginning to fear what people might think of me. She had no idea that soon the whole room would learn who I really was. That Saturday morning, I woke before the alarm. At my age, sleep does not always stay loyal. It comes in pieces, leaves quietly, and sometimes takes old memories with it when it goes. I lay in bed for a few minutes, listening to the furnace hum beneath the floorboards, and the wind scrape dry leaves along the side of the house. Henry's side of the bed was still empty after 8 years, but I still did not sleep in the middle. Some habits are not habits at all. They are love, refusing to move. I got dressed in the dark, careful not to wake a house that no longer had anyone else inside it. I put on jeans, my old blue coat, thick socks, and the sneakers Emily hated. Then I went downstairs, tied my apron into a square knot, and began loading food into canvas bags. Chicken casserole, green beans, mashed potatoes, applesauce cups for the children, a tray of biscuits wrapped in foil. I checked every lid twice because a spill in the trunk would waste food somebody needed. By 5:45, I was driving through the quiet streets of Columbus, the sky still black, the city not yet dressed for the day. Storefronts were dark. Gas stations glowed lonely at intersections. A man in a hoodie pushed a shopping cart along the sidewalk with all his belongings tied in plastic bags. I whispered a prayer for him at the red light. Haven House Outreach was not fancy. That was the first thing I loved about it. No grand columns, no shining glass wall, no sign big enough for people to photograph themselves beside it. It was a brick building tucked behind St. Matthew's Methodist Church, with a ramp on one side, a children's mural on the back fence, and a kitchen door that stuck whenever it rained. The first time I came there, I had been newly widowed and still angry at God. That is the truth. People think grief makes you soft. Sometimes it does. But sometimes Grief makes you sharp enough to cut yourself on everything. After Henry died, I was angry at the coffee cup he left behind, angry at the pharmacy for sending refill reminders, angry at couples holding hands in grocery aisles. I was angry at the silence in my house and angry at myself for still setting out 2 plates. Then one morning, I found an old note Henry had left inside his Bible. Maggie, when it hurts too much, give something away. Pain needs a place to go. That was Henry. He could say in 12 words what I spent 12 months trying to understand. So I came to Haven House carrying 2 pans of baked ziti and a heart full of broken glass. A woman named Rachel opened the kitchen door. Back then, Rachel was not the director. She was 26 years old, thin as a whisper, with a little boy on her hip, and a purple bruise fading beneath the edge of her scarf. She had arrived at Haven House 6 months earlier with $2 one diaper and no plan except survival. The shelter had helped her find safety. Then she stayed on as a volunteer because she said leaving other women behind felt wrong. "Can I help you?" she asked me that first day. "I hope so," I said, lifting the pans. "I cooked too much." She looked at me for a long moment, the way people look when they have learned kindness can come with hooks. Then she opened the door wider. That was how I became Miss Maggie. At first, I only cooked. Then I folded laundry. Then I watched children during support meetings. Then I started driving women to job interviews when the bus routes did not line up. Then I learned which grocery stores donated bread on Thursdays and which dentist would see a frightened child without asking too many questions first. Haven House became the place where my grief could breathe. Nobody there asked whether my coat was fashionable. Nobody asked why I still wore my wedding ring. Nobody cared that my purse came from a clearance rack. They cared that I showed up. And I did. Week after week. Month after month. Year after year. That morning, Rachel was already in the kitchen when I arrived. She was 40 now, steady-eyed, with her hair pulled back and a clipboard tucked under one arm. She had grown into authority the hard way. Not by chasing power, but by surviving what should have destroyed her and choosing to become shelter for someone else. "Miss Maggie," she said, smiling as she took a tray from my hands. "You are an answer to prayer. At my age, baby, I'm mostly an answer to arthritis." She laughed and kissed my cheek. The kitchen smelled like coffee disinfectant and warm bread. Volunteers moved around one another in the practice dance of people who had too much to do and not enough counter space. In the corner, 2 little girls colored at a folding table. One had mismatched socks. The other held a crayon so tightly her knuckles looked pale. "Where's the young mother you texted me about?" I asked. Rachel's smile faded a little. "Upstairs. Her name is Dana. The children are 7 and 4. She barely slept." "Can I bring them breakfast?" "That's why I texted you." I washed my hands, warmed the biscuits, and made 4 plates. Eggs, fruit, a little casserole, not too much at once. Fear does strange things to the stomach. I had learned that from years of patience and years of women who arrived with their souls braced for impact. Dana sat in the upstairs family room wearing a sweatshirt 2 sizes too large. Her hair was tangled and her eyes had that faraway look I knew too well, the look of someone whose body had escaped before her mind caught up. Her son sat beside her silent, holding a toy truck with one missing wheel. Her daughter leaned against her mother's side thumb in her mouth. "Good morning," I said softly. "I'm Maggie." Dana looked at the tray in my hands. "They said you're the lady with warm hands." I almost cried then, not because the words were grand, but because they were simple. Simple words often cut deepest. "I suppose I am," I said. "Would your babies like something to eat?" The little boy looked at his mother first, waiting for permission. That told me a great deal. Dana nodded. I set the tray down and did not ask what happened. People in pain are asked to repeat their wounds too often. Sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is offer orange juice and silence. After a while, the little girl reached for a biscuit. Then the boy took one too. Dana watched them eat, and her face folded. "I should have left sooner," she whispered. I sat beside her, leaving enough space so she did not feel trapped. "Most people leave the moment they can." He said no one would believe me. I looked at her then. "I believe you." Her eyes filled. Those 3 words can be a roof. Later that morning, I helped in the clothing room, sorting donated coats by size. A volunteer named Ben teased me because I rejected a coat with a broken zipper. "Miss Maggie, somebody could still use it." "Not if they're standing at a bus stop in January," I said. "Poor people deserve working zippers." He raised both hands. "Yes, ma'am." By noon, the building had filled with the kind of noise that does not sound like hope until you have lived without it. Children arguing over crayons. A washing machine thumping off balance. Someone laughing in the hallway. Rachel's voice answering a crisis call in her office. A baby crying because babies do not care how hard the world has been. They still expect comfort. I love that sound. Near the end of my shift, Rachel found me in the pantry counting cans of soup. "I need to talk to you," she said. I turned. "That sounds serious." "It is." My first thought was that something had happened to Dana. "What's wrong?" "Nothing bad." She hesitated, and for the first time in years, Rachel looked nervous around me. "The gala committee finalized the honorees." I went still. "No," I said. She smiled gently. "You don't even know what I'm going to say." "I know exactly what you're going to say, and the answer is no. Miss Maggie Rachel, no." She stepped into the pantry and lowered her voice. "You have served this organization for 13 years. I have helped a little. You have cooked over 9,000 meals. I like cooking. You have driven women to interviews, court hearings, hospitals, apartments. You helped furnish the children's room. You paid 3 months of storage fees for a woman whose husband tried to destroy everything she owned. She needed help. You gave us your house." I looked sharply toward the hallway. Not out loud. Rachel softened. "Nobody here forgets what you did." My throat tightened. That was the secret Emily did not know. My yellow house had not only been my home. For years, the back apartment Henry built over the garage had quietly sheltered women in transition when Haven House had no beds left. Not officially, not advertised, only in emergencies. Only through Rachel. A night here, a week there, sometimes longer when danger was still circling. Henry had built that apartment for Emily when she was in college, thinking one day she might need a place to land. She never did. Other daughters did. Women who arrived with swollen lips and shaking hands. Mothers with babies. One grandmother raising 2 grandchildren after her daughter disappeared into addiction. They came through my back gate, slept under Henry's roof, and left with keys to safer futures. How could I sell that house? How could I explain that to Emily when she believed value meant market price? Rachel reached for my hand. "We want to honor you with the Lifetime Compassion Award." No. Why? Because attention changes things. Sometimes attention protects things. I don't need a stage. "I know," she said. "That's why you belong on one." I looked away. Through the pantry doorway, I could see Dana's little boy rolling his broken truck across the floor, while another child laughed beside him. For the first time that morning, he was making engine sounds. Rachel squeezed my hand. "There will be people at that gala who have written checks because it made them look generous. I am grateful for the checks. But they need to see what real generosity looks like when nobody is photographing it." I shook my head. My daughter will be there. I know. My eyes flew back to hers. Rachel's face told me everything. She knew Emily was on the committee. She knew my daughter did not know. She knew the collision coming toward me had already left the station. Please don't tell her, I said. I won't. She wouldn't understand. Rachel's voice softened. Maybe it's time she did. I did not answer. That evening, when I drove home, my car smelled like casserole and donated coats. My back ached. My hands were dry from sanitizer. My heart felt heavy with Rachel's request. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw Emily's silver SUV parked at the curb. She stood on my porch, arms crossed, looking at my old blue coat, the empty food containers stacked in my passenger seat, and the Haven House volunteer badge I had forgotten to remove. For one long second, neither of us moved. Then my daughter said, "Mom, where exactly have you been all day?" Emily stood on my porch like she had come to inspect a property, not visit her mother. Her silver SUV gleamed under the weak afternoon sun. She wore cream-colored slacks, a camel coat, and the kind of expression people use when they believe they already know the answer but want to make you confess anyway. Her eyes moved from my old blue coat to the empty casserole trays in my arms, then to the small Haven House volunteer badge still clipped near my collar. I reached up slowly and removed it. Too late. "Mom," she said again, sharper this time. "Where exactly have you been all day?" I could have lied. I could have said church. I could have said grocery shopping. I could have said I was helping an old friend. Those would have been easy lies, the kind people forgive because they do not disturb anything. But I was tired of making my life smaller so Emily would not have to widen her heart. "I was volunteering," I said. Her eyes flicked to the badge in my hand. "At Haven House?" "Yes." She stared at me as if I had just told her I had been sneaking into board meetings at the White House. "Since when a while?" "How long is a while?" I balanced the empty trays against my hip. "Several years." Her mouth opened, then closed. For 1 second, she looked genuinely confused. Not angry yet, just unable to place me inside a picture she had not arranged. "Several years," she repeated. "You've been going there for years and never told me. You never asked where I went on Saturdays. That's not fair." "Maybe not." I stepped around her to unlock the front door, but Emily did not move aside right away. She looked past me into the house at the worn entry rug, the old staircase, the framed photograph of Henry in his army uniform, and the brass umbrella stand shaped like a heron. Her face tightened the way it always did when she entered my home, as if memory itself had a smell she disliked. Inside, I set the trays on the kitchen counter. Emily followed her heels, clicking against the linoleum floor Henry had installed himself the summer Emily turned 10. "I don't understand," she said. "Why would you keep that from me? It wasn't a secret meant to hurt you." "That doesn't answer the question." I washed my hands at the sink, buying a moment. Outside the kitchen window, the maple tree lifted its bare branches into the gray sky. Henry used to say that tree looked like it was praying in winter. "I go because people need help," I said. Emily folded her arms. "What kind of help? Meals, rides, childcare, listening, whatever I can do." Her eyes narrowed. "With your back, Mom, you can barely carry groceries sometimes. I carry what I can." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" She looked around this kitchen. Her gaze rested on the stacks of labeled containers near the refrigerator, the thrift store crock-pot, the basket of donated scarves by the back door. Her expression shifted from confusion to embarrassment, then to something colder. "The point is," she said, "you're making yourself look needy." I turned off the faucet. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. "Needy? You show up at a charity organization with old clothes and food trays. People might assume you're one of the people being served. And if they did," Her face flushed. Mom, please don't make this into some moral lecture. I asked a question. She exhaled. You know Mark and I are involved with the gala. You know people from my circle are connected to Haven House. If they see you there looking like... She stopped. Like what? She pressed her lips together. Say it, I said. I'm not trying to hurt you. That has never stopped you before. Her eyes flashed. That's unfair. No, Emily. Unfair is deciding your mother's kindness embarrasses you because it isn't polished enough. She looked away first, and I hated that I felt a small victory in it. Mothers are not supposed to want to win against their children. But sometimes, you simply want them to stop stepping on the same bruise. Emily walked into the living room without asking. She began touching things the way she always did, straightening a picture frame, lifting a stack of mail, frowning at a crack near the fireplace mantel. This house is too much for you, she said. I stayed in the kitchen doorway. We are not talking about the house. We should be. No, Mom, look around. She gestured toward the ceiling. The gutters need work. The paint is peeling on the back porch. The upstairs bathroom is practically from another century. This place is swallowing your money. It is my money to be swallowed. That's exactly the problem. You don't think long-term. I almost laughed. I had lived nearly 7 decades, survived widowhood, stretched paychecks, raised a child, cared for the dying, and kept a roof over my head. But according to Emily, I did not think long-term because I refused to turn my memories into cash. She pulled a folder from her leather tote and placed it on the coffee table. My stomach tightened. What is that information? About what a real estate consultant Mark knows. He ran some preliminary numbers. I stared at the folder. Preliminary numbers. On my home. Without my permission. Emily spoke quickly, as if speed could make the intrusion sound practical. The market is still strong in this area. With the lot size and the garage apartment, you could get more than you think. If we make a few cosmetic updates first, maybe even more. I mean the family. You mean you and Mark. Her face hardened. Why do you always assume the worst of me? Because you had my house evaluated without asking me. It was just an estimate. It was my house. You're being emotional. I am allowed to be emotional about the home I bought with my husband. She softened her voice, which meant she was preparing another knife. Dad would want you safe. Do not use your father to sell my house. The words came out louder than I intended. Emily froze. The room seemed to shrink around us. Henry's photograph sat on the bookshelf, his smile gentle, his eyes steady. I could almost feel him standing beside me. Not angry, just sad that this was happening in the room where he once taught Emily to tie her shoes. Emily looked at the photograph, then back at me. Dad would also want you to be practical. Your father built the apartment over the garage with his own hands. For me, she said. Yes, I whispered. For you. Something passed through her face, quick and unreadable. Then she looked away. I didn't need it. No, I said. You didn't. Other women had. But I did not say that. Not yet. Emily opened the folder and pulled out glossy pages with graphs, numbers, and photographs of houses that looked like mine after strangers had erased the lives inside them. White walls, black fixtures, open concept, staged furniture. No grief, no history, no fingerprints. You could move into a senior community, she said. A nice one. Mark and I could help manage the sale proceeds. You wouldn't have to worry about repairs or taxes or... Stop. Mom, listen to me. No, you listen to me. My hands trembled, so I clasped them together. This house is not for sale. You haven't even considered it. I considered it the moment Henry died. I considered it when the furnace broke. I considered it when the roof leaked above the hallway. I considered it every time someone told me an old woman alone should downsize before life downsized her first. I stepped closer, and every time the answer was no. Emily's face reddened. Because you're stubborn. Because I made a promise. To who? To your father? What promise? I looked toward the back hallway, toward the mudroom door that led to the yard, the garage, and the little apartment above it. I thought of Dana and her children. I thought of Rachel all those years ago. I thought of the grandmother who had slept there for 6 weeks and left me a thank you note tucked under the pillow. I thought of Henry's handwriting inside his Bible. When it hurts too much, give something away. That this house would be more than walls, I said. Emily stared at me. What does that even mean? It means I'm not selling it. Her jaw tightened. You are 68 years old. I'm aware. You cannot keep acting like you don't need a plan. I have a plan. Emily stared at me. What does that even mean? It means I'm not selling it. Her jaw tightened. You are 68 years old. I'm aware. You cannot keep acting like you don't need a plan. I have a plan. Volunteering at a shelter is not a retirement plan. No, it's a purpose. She gave a frustrated laugh. Purpose doesn't pay property taxes. Neither does pride, but you invest in that every day. The words landed hard. Emily stepped back as if I had slapped her. For a moment, shame flickered in me. I did not want to become cruel just because cruelty had visited me. But I also could not pretend her plans were love simply because she used a softer tone than a stranger would. She closed the folder slowly. I came here to help you. No, I said. You came here to handle me. Her eyes filled not with tears, but with anger dressed as hurt. You have no idea how much pressure I'm under. Then stop putting your pressure on my shoulders. I am trying to protect this family's future. Whose future, Emily? She did not answer. There it was, the question between us, the one she could not touch, because my future in her mind had become something to manage. Lily's future had become something to display. Mark's future was something to expand, and Emily's future was something to polish until nobody could see the fear underneath. But the women who came through my back gate had futures too. I thought of saying it. I almost did. Instead, I said, I will attend the gala. I will be polite. I will not embarrass you on purpose. But you will not bring me another folder about selling this house. Emily picked up the folder and shoved it into her tote. You may not have a choice forever, she said quietly. A chill moved through me. What is that supposed to mean? She looked at the floor, then at the window, then anywhere except my face. It means eventually decisions have to be made before circumstances make them for you. I heard Mark in that sentence. I heard financial meetings, estate planning, whispered conversations about me that happened over marble counters while I was not in the room. You and Mark have been discussing my house. We've been discussing your well-being. My house, I repeated. Emily's silence answered. I walked to the front door and opened it. For the first time in years, I asked my daughter to leave. She stood there shocked. I'm tired. We're not done talking. I walked to the front door and opened it. For the first time in years, I asked my daughter to leave. She stood there shocked. Mom, I'm tired. We're not done talking. Yes, I said. We are. She moved toward the door, then stopped beside me. Her perfume was expensive, sharp floral, nothing like the baby shampoo scent I remembered from her childhood. You're making a mistake, she said. I looked at her, really looked at her. My beautiful daughter. My hurting daughter. My proud, frightened, polished daughter who had mistaken control for love. "No," I said softly. "I made my mistake years ago when I taught you that my silence meant permission." Her face changed. Then she left. I watched her SUV pull away from the curb, its tires whispering over fallen leaves. Only when it disappeared did I close the door and lean my back against it. My knees felt weak. On the coffee table, one page had slipped from Emily's folder. She must not have noticed. I picked it up. It was a printed estimate for my house. At the bottom, in Mark's neat handwriting, were 4 words that made my chest tighten. Potential liquidation before gala. I read it again. Before gala. That was when I understood Emily's embarrassment was not the only danger coming. She and Mark were not just worried about how I looked. They were preparing to take control of what I owned. For the next few days, I carried Mark's 4 words around like a stone in my pocket. Potential liquidation before gala. I folded the page and tucked it inside Henry's old Bible, not because it belonged there, but because I did not know where else to put something that made me feel both frightened and foolish. Frightened because my daughter and son-in-law were clearly planning around me. Foolish because part of me still wanted to believe they meant well. That is the hardest thing about being hurt by family. A stranger's cruelty is simple. You can name it, walk away from it, lock the door against it. But when the wound comes from someone you once rocked to sleep, your heart keeps looking for excuses long after your mind has run out of them. On Monday morning, Emily sent me 3 text messages before breakfast. The first was a link to the boutique. The second was a reminder about the gala schedule. The third was one sentence: "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." I stared at that last message while my oatmeal cooled in front of me. Harder for whom? For her, because her mother did not fit neatly into the life she had polished. For me, because I was being asked to dress up and smile beside people who were quietly calculating how soon I could be moved out of my own home, or for Haven House, where Rachel was still waiting for my answer about the award I had not given it. Every time Rachel called, I let it go to voicemail. Every time she texted, I answered with practical things. The food pantry needs more rice. Dana's son likes peanut butter crackers. The blue coats should go upstairs before Thursday. Anything except yes or no. I was afraid that accepting the award would turn my quiet promise into public property. I was also afraid that refusing it would be another way of hiding. By Wednesday, Emily called. "Mom, did you confirm the boutique appointment? I told you I'm choosing my own dress." She made a sound that was not quite a sigh and not quite a groan. "Fine. Then can I at least come over and see what you're planning to wear?" "No, Mom. No, Emily. You're being impossible. I'm being clear." There was silence on the line. Then she said, "Mark thinks you're upset because of the house conversation." "I am upset because of the house conversation." He was only trying to help. By writing potential liquidation before gala on a property estimate, the line went dead quiet. I could almost see her face, her eyes widening, her mouth pressing shut. Not because she felt guilty, but because she had been caught knowing something she hoped I had not seen. "Where did you get that?" she asked. "You left a page behind." "That was private." I laughed once. It came out sadder than I meant it to. My house was private too. "Mom, you don't understand financial planning." "I understand when people discuss selling what does not belong to them. No one is selling anything without your permission." "Then why before the gala?" She hesitated. That hesitation told me more than any answer could have. "Emily, it was just timing," she said quickly. "The gala brings attention, connections. Mark thought if we spoke to the right people that night, maybe we could get better advice. About removing me from my home, about protecting your assets. Stop using pretty words for ugly intentions." Her voice sharpened. You have become very dramatic lately. No, I said. I have become awake. She hung up first. I stood in my kitchen with the phone in my hand and felt something inside me shift. Not break. That had happened slowly over years. This was different. This was an old door opening from the inside. That afternoon, I went upstairs to the back bedroom, where I kept my best clothes. The room smelled faintly of cedar and lavender. In the closet hung my navy dress, my black funeral dress, 2 church dresses, and a pale blue suit I had not worn in almost 10 years. The suit had belonged to a different version of me. Henry bought it for our 40th wedding anniversary dinner. We had saved for months to eat at a restaurant downtown with white tablecloths and a piano player. I remember standing in front of the mirror that night, smoothing the sleeves, telling him it was too expensive. He had come up behind me, kissed my gray-streaked hair, and said, "Maggie, beautiful things don't become wasteful just because you're the one wearing them." I took the suit from the closet and held it against me. It was modest, well-made, and soft at the edges from age. The color reminded me of morning sky before the heat rises. Emily would probably call it outdated. But Henry had loved me in it. I had loved myself in it. That would have to be enough. On Friday evening, Emily arrived without calling. I saw her through the front window, stepping out of her SUV with a long garment bag draped over one arm. Lily was with her, looking embarrassed before she even reached the porch. I opened the door before they knocked. Emily lifted the garment bag. "Before you get upset, just look at it." I said no. It's not a criticism. It's a gift. A gift is given with love. This feels like a correction. Lily looked down at her shoes. Emily's face tightened. "Can we not do this in front of Lily?" I stepped aside because my granddaughter did not deserve to stand in the cold between 2 generations of pain. "Come in." Emily laid the garment bag across my sofa and unzipped it. Inside was a charcoal gray dress with a structured jacket. Expensive. With a structured jacket. Expensive. Tasteful. Lifeless. "It's elegant," she said. "Age appropriate, but not frumpy." Lily winced. I looked at the dress, then at my daughter. "Do you hear yourself?" Emily blinked. "What tasteful? Lifeless?" "It's elegant," she said. "Age appropriate, but not frumpy." Lily winced. I looked at the dress, then at my daughter. "Do you hear yourself?" Emily blinked. "What age appropriate, but not frumpy?" "I'm trying to help. You're trying to edit me." She closed her eyes. "Mom, for one night, can you please not turn everything into a battle? For one night, can you please not act like my existence is a problem to solve?" "Lily?" whispered Grandma. I stopped. Not because I had no more words stopped. Not because I had no more words, but because Lily's voice reminded me there were young ears in the room learning what love sounded like. I did not want her to believe love was humiliation with better manners. I touched her shoulder. "I'm sorry, baby." But because Lily's voice reminded me there were young ears in the room learning what love sounded like, I did not want her to believe love was humiliation with better manners. I touched her shoulder. "I'm sorry, baby." Emily zipped the garment bag halfway. "Fine. Wear whatever you want, but don't be surprised if people make assumptions." "What assumptions that you're out of place?" I smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Emily, I have spent most of my life in rooms where somebody thought I was out of place. Hospitals, banks, parent meetings, charity offices, even your dining room. I learned to stand anyway." She looked away. Lily came to me after Emily went to the kitchen to take a call. Her eyes were glossy. "Grandma, I don't want to go to the gala if everyone's going to fight." I touched her cheek. "No one is going to fight." "That's not true." Children can be merciless with truth because they have not yet learned to decorate it. I sat beside her on the sofa. Your mother is scared. Of what? Of not being enough. Lily frowned. But she makes everyone else feel like they're not enough. I know. Why do people do that? I looked toward the kitchen where Emily's low voice slipped through the doorway. Because sometimes people hand out the pain they don't know how to heal. Lily leaned into me. You don't. I have had more practice being quiet. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. I kissed her forehead. No, it doesn't. When Emily returned, her smile was too bright. Good news. The seating chart is settled. We're at table 4. Mom, you'll be at table 12 with some community volunteers. Lily sat up. What? Why isn't Grandma with us? Emily avoided her eyes. It's just how the table assignments worked out. That's not fair. It's fine, I said. But it was not fine. Table 12 with volunteers. Away from Emily's clients, away from Mark's polished circle, away from the photographs she wanted to control. She was not bringing me as family. She was bringing me as proof of family, then placing me where that proof would not show too clearly. Mom, Lily said, I'll sit with you. No, honey, Emily said quickly. You'll sit with us. But I want to sit with Grandma. Lily. The warning in Emily's voice made Lily go still. I recognized that stillness. It was the same stillness I had seen in children at Haven House when a parent's tone changed the air in the room. Not the same danger, no. But the same lesson, be careful, shrink quickly, do not make it worse. That was when I decided I would go to the gala. Not for Emily, not for Mark, not even for the award I still had not accepted. I would go because Lily needed to see one woman in her family refuse to disappear. After they left, I called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. Miss Maggie, I'll come, I said. Her breath caught. To the gala? Yes. And the award? I looked at Henry's photograph on the mantel. I thought of the women who came through my back gate. I thought of Dana's little boy making truck sounds for the first time since arriving. I thought of Lily watching me learning silently. Yes, I said, though the word trembled. But no surprises before that night. Please. Rachel's voice softened. You have my word. Emily can't know. She won't hear it from me. After we hung up, I went upstairs and tried on the pale blue suit. It fit more tightly than it once had. My waist had softened. My shoulders had rounded. The woman in the mirror looked older than the one Henry had kissed all those years ago. But her eyes were still mine. I pinned my silver hair, neatly put on my pearl earrings, and stood very still. For the first time in a long while, I did not wonder whether Emily would approve. I wondered whether Henry would recognize the woman looking back at me, and deep in my heart, I believed he would. The night of the gala, Emily did not come to my door. She texted me from the driveway. We're here. I stood in front of the hallway mirror, reading those 2 words on my phone, and for a moment, I felt like a schoolgirl waiting to be judged before a recital. My pale blue suit was pressed. My pearl earrings were fastened. My silver hair was pinned neatly at the back of my head. I had even polished the low navy shoes Henry used to call my dancing shoes, though I had not danced in them since before he died. Still, my hands trembled. I looked at my reflection and whispered, You are not going there to be approved. The woman in the mirror looked back at me with tired eyes. Then I added, You are going there to stand. When I stepped outside, Emily was sitting in the front passenger seat of Mark's SUV. Mark was behind the wheel. Lily sat in the back, pressed close to the window, and when she saw me, her whole face brightened. Grandma, she said as soon as I opened the rear door, You look beautiful. Those words settled over me like a shawl. Thank you, baby. Emily turned around. Her eyes moved over my suit, my pearls, my shoes, my small black purse. For one brief second, I saw surprise. Then she covered it with a careful smile. That's nice, she said. Not beautiful, not lovely, nice. Mark glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Evening, Margaret. Good evening, Mark. He pulled away from the curb before I had fully settled my purse in my lap. The ride downtown was quiet, except for Emily's reminders. She reminded Lily not to wander. She reminded Mark to mention the new donor package to a man named Stephen Caldwell. She reminded me that cocktails would be served before dinner, but I should probably avoid standing near the bar because photographs there could look awkward. I don't drink, I said. I know, Mom. I'm just saying. Lily groaned. Mom, stop. Emily turned sharply. Excuse me, she looks nice. Just let her breathe. I placed my hand over Lily's. It's all right. But it was not all right. Every correction was a tiny leash, and by the time we reached the hotel, I felt as if I had been pulled into shape. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of a downtown Columbus hotel, the kind with chandeliers like frozen rain and carpet thick enough to swallow footsteps. At the entrance, a large sign read, Haven House Outreach, Annual Hope and Home Gala. Hope and home, 2 words that meant more than anyone in that glittering lobby knew. Women in satin dresses and men in dark suits moved around us, laughing softly, holding glasses, air-kissing cheeks. A photographer stood near a flower wall, taking pictures of donors beneath a gold logo. Volunteers handed out programs tied with pale ribbons. Then I saw Rachel. She stood across the lobby in a deep green dress, speaking with an older couple. Her hair was swept back, her posture straight. Her smile professional. But when her eyes found mine, something warm passed between us. Not a wave. Not a shout. Just recognition. Emily noticed. Do you know her? She asked. A little. That's Rachel Morgan, Emily said, lowering her voice. She's the executive director. Mark says she's very well connected. She's a good woman, I said. Emily looked at me strangely. You say that like you actually know her. Before I could answer, a young volunteer hurried toward us. She was no older than 25, with a headset clipped to one ear and a clipboard pressed to her chest. Miss Maggie? She said, almost breathless. You made it! Emily's smile froze. The volunteer caught herself and glanced at Emily. I'm sorry. Mrs. Ellis, we're so happy you're here. I felt Mark's eyes move toward me. Emily gave a small laugh. Miss Maggie. The volunteer smiled innocently. That's what everyone calls her. Everyone. The word landed between us. I saw Emily's expression tighten, but she said nothing. Not yet. Thank you, dear, I told the volunteer. You all have done a beautiful job. We saved your... She stopped abruptly, as if remembering instructions. I mean, your table is ready. Emily's eyes narrowed. Table 12. The volunteer looked confused. No, ma'am, I believe. Rachel appeared then smooth as mercy. Margaret, she said, taking both my hands. I'm so glad you're here. I squeezed her fingers silently, begging her not to say too much. Rachel understood. She turned to Emily. You must be Mrs. Parker. Thank you for your work on the committee. Emily's smile returned polished and bright. Of course, we're honored to support Haven House. Support. I wondered if Rachel heard the difference between that word and serve. Inside the ballroom table, 4 sat near the stage, close enough to be seen. Table 12 was farther back near a side wall, filled with volunteers who immediately smiled when they saw me. One of them raised her hand in greeting before quickly lowering it, remembering the secret. Emily looked from table 4 to table 12, then back at me. "Well," she said, voice tight, "there must be some confusion." A staff member checked the seating list. "Mrs. Ellis is at table 4. Mark straightened. "With us?" "Yes, sir." Emily's smile twitched. "That's unexpected." Lily grinned. "Good." I sat beside Lily with Emily on my other side. Mark sat next to a banker he clearly wanted to impress. Throughout the first course, people came by our table to greet Rachel, Mark, Emily, and other donors. But a strange thing began happening. They also greeted me. A woman with silver braids touched my shoulder and whispered, "Good to see you, Miss Maggie." A young man in a server's jacket slipped an extra roll beside my plate and said, "My mom says hello." An older volunteer nodded with tears in her eyes. Each greeting was small, respectful, quiet. Each one made Emily more rigid. Finally, she leaned toward me, her smile still aimed at the room. "Mom," she whispered, "what exactly have you been telling people about yourself?" I blinked. "Nothing." "Then why does everyone know you?" "Not everyone." "Don't play games with me." "I'm not." She placed her napkin on the table with careful force. "This is my event, too. I need to know if you've been using my committee involvement to make yourself seem important." The words struck so hard I could not breathe for a second. Lily heard. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Mom," she said quietly. Emily ignored her. "I mean it. If you've been walking around Haven House acting like some kind of family representative, I have never mentioned your name there." That was true. For years, Emily's name had never crossed my lips inside those walls, except when someone asked if I had children. Emily's face flushed. "So you're saying you had this whole little life there and kept it from me on purpose?" "I kept their lives private." "Their lives? The people who needed help?" She gave a brittle laugh. "Of course, St. Margaret." I stared at my plate. The salad in front of me blurred. "Emily," I whispered, "please don't." But she had gone too far inside her own embarrassment to hear me. The program began after dinner. The lights dimmed. A video played across large screens showing children in after-school programs, mothers receiving apartment keys, volunteers stacking pantry shelves, and donors smiling at ribbon cuttings. People applauded politely. Then came the live auction, then the speeches, then another video. At first, I thought I had imagined the image on the screen. A kitchen. Steam rising from a pot. 2 hands tying an apron. My hands. My heart lurched. The camera never showed my face clearly, only pieces, my hands folding children's clothes, my blue coat hanging by the back door, my silhouette carrying grocery bags across a snowy sidewalk. Rachel had promised no surprises before the night, but she had not promised no tears. Emily leaned toward me again, her voice low and furious. "Is that you?" I could not speak. "Mom." "Yes," I whispered. Her face changed into something I had never seen before. Humiliation mixed with anger, as if my quiet service had somehow betrayed her. Before the video ended, a woman at the next table turned and smiled at me. Emily saw it. That was when she stood. Not fully, just enough to lean across the table enough for those nearest us to hear. "I cannot believe this," she said, her voice shaking. "You let me walk into this room blind while you played some secret role here." "Emily, sit down," Mark muttered. "No," she snapped. I'm tired of being made to look like the villain because my mother refuses to communicate like a normal person. People nearby turned. Lily's face went pale. Mom, stop. But Emily looked at me, and every year of resentment seemed to rise in her throat. You know what this is? She said. This is exactly what she does. She acts helpless at home, makes everyone worry about her, refuses real help, and then plays hero in public so strangers will clap for her. A hush spread around our table. My cheeks burned. I felt every eye. Emily, I said softly, please. But my softness only seemed to provoke her. No, Mom. You don't get to sit there looking wounded. You have put me through weeks of stress over that old house, over your stubbornness, over your refusal to accept reality. And now I find out you've been sneaking around this charity like you're some kind of saint. Mark reached for her arm. Emily. She pulled away. Then she said the words that emptied the air from my lungs. She's not some hero. She's a burden who doesn't know when to step aside. The ballroom went silent near us. Not the entire room yet, but enough. Enough for table 12 to hear. Enough for Rachel standing by the stage steps to turn. Enough for Lily to burst into tears. I sat very still. There are insults that hit like a slap, and there are insults that feel like a door closing inside you. Burden was one of those words. It carried years of quiet messages, years of sighs, corrections, hidden seating charts, folders about my house, and smiles that never reached my daughter's eyes. A burden. I looked at Emily, and suddenly, I did not see the polished woman in front of me. I saw the little girl I once carried through a fever, crying into my nightgown. I saw the teenager whose prom dress I altered by hand. I saw the college student who called me at midnight because she was lonely. Had I been a burden then? Or only now when love no longer made me useful? I stood slowly. My knees trembled, but I stood. I think I said my voice barely above a whisper. I need some air. Lily reached for me. Grandma, don't go. I touched her hand. I'm all right. I was not all right. I walked toward the side exit, past the tables, past the flowers, past strangers who pretended not to stare, but stared anyway. My vision blurred, but I kept my back straight. If I cried before I reached the hallway, Emily would call it drama. If I defended myself, she would call it manipulation. So I chose the last dignity left to me. Silence. I had almost reached the ballroom doors when the microphone crackled. Rachel's voice filled the room. Ladies and gentlemen, before our final award, may I ask everyone to remain seated? I stopped. My hand was on the door. The lights shifted toward the stage. Rachel continued, her voice steady but thick with emotion. Tonight's Lifetime Compassion Award honors a woman who has spent 13 years serving Haven House without seeking recognition, payment, or applause. Many of you know her by a name spoken with deep love inside our walls. My breath caught. Behind me, the room seemed to hold still. Rachel said, "Would Miss Maggie Ellis please come to the stage?" For a second, I could not move. Then she added, "Margaret Ellis, this honor belongs to you." And every face in that ballroom turned toward me. For one terrible second, I thought Rachel must have said another woman's name. Margaret Ellis. Miss Maggie Ellis. The words floated through the ballroom and landed on my shoulders like something too heavy and too holy to carry. My hand remained on the door handle. The hallway was only one step away. I could still leave. I could still choose the quiet dark over the brightness of 300 faces. But then I heard Lily. "Grandma," she whispered behind me. Her voice broke on the word. I turned. My granddaughter was standing beside table 4, tears shining on her cheeks, both hands pressed against her mouth. Emily stood frozen beside her, one hand still gripping the back of her chair. Mark's face had gone pale in a way I had never seen before. Around them, people were looking from Rachel to me, then to Emily, trying to understand the storm they had just witnessed. Rachel stood on the stage, her eyes fixed on mine. She did not smile as if this were a performance. She looked at me the way one survivor looks at the person who held the door open. "Please," she said into the microphone, her voice gentle. "Come join me." The room remained silent. I released the door handle. Every step back toward the stage felt longer than the last. I could hear my shoes against the carpet. I could hear someone sniffle at table 12. I could hear the soft scrape of chairs as people turned to watch me pass. I kept my purse clutched in both hands because I needed something to hold on to. When I passed Emily, I did not look at her. Not because I hated her. Because if I saw shame on her face, my heart might soften too soon. And if I saw anger, my knees might fail. Lily reached for my sleeve as I passed. I paused, bent slightly, and kissed her forehead. "I'm all right," I whispered. She shook her head, crying harder because both of us knew I was lying. Then I walked on. At the stage steps, Rachel came down to meet me. She took my elbow, not because she thought I was weak, but because she understood that being honored can feel as frightening as being attacked when you have spent your life avoiding the spotlight. The applause began before I reached the stage. At first, it was one person. Then table 12 stood. Then a woman near the back stood. Then another. Within seconds, the sound spread across the ballroom like rain growing into a storm. People rose to their feet, clapping, turning toward me, with faces full of recognition I had never asked for and never imagined. I wanted to disappear. I wanted Henry. I wanted to be back in my kitchen with a pot of soup where kindness had no microphone. Rachel guided me to the center of the stage. The lights were warm and blinding. I could not see individual faces now, only shapes, movement, hands, meeting hands. But I could still feel Emily's presence somewhere below me, sharp and silent. Rachel held up her hand, and slowly the room quieted. Many of you know Haven House through our annual reports, our programs, our donor events, and our public campaigns, she began. Tonight, we want you to know Haven House through a woman who helped build its heart long before most people in this room knew our name. My throat tightened. Rachel turned slightly toward me. 13 years ago, Margaret Ellis came to our back kitchen door carrying 2 pans of baked ziti. She said she had cooked too much. A ripple of soft laughter moved through the room. I knew then Rachel continued that she was lying. The laughter grew warmer. She had not cooked too much. She had hurt too much. And instead of letting grief close her life, she opened it. That day, she fed 12 women and 9 children. The next week, she came back. Then, the week after that. And she never really stopped coming. I stared at the floor. The stage lights blurred. Miss Maggie, as our families call her, has cooked meals when funding was short. She has driven mothers to court hearings, medical appointments, job interviews, and new apartments. She has watched children so their mothers could attend counseling sessions. She has sewn buttons on interview blouses, bought winter boots without leaving receipts, and sat beside women who were too afraid to sleep. A sound came from somewhere in the room. A soft sob. Rachel's voice thickened, but she kept going. She has done something else, too. Something she asked us never to publicize until now. My heart lurched. I looked at Rachel. Her eyes apologized, but her voice did not stop. When Haven House had no emergency beds available when danger was immediate and options were gone, Margaret opened a small apartment behind her own home, quietly, safely, without payment. without recognition. More than 20 women and children have passed through that little apartment on their way to safer lives. The room changed. I felt it. The applause earlier had been gratitude. This silence was reverence. My little yellow house seemed to rise before me in memory, the back gate creaking softly at midnight, Henry's old porch light glowing, women stepping carefully up the garage stairs with children wrapped in blankets. I remembered making hot tea at 2 a.m. I remembered washing sheets before sunrise so neighbors would not ask questions. I remembered standing at the window after each woman left, praying the world would be kinder to her than it had been before. Rachel continued, "Some people give because they want their names on walls. Some give because they want invitations, photographs, influence, or applause. But Margaret gave what most of us protect most fiercely: her home, her time, her privacy, her heart." My eyes lifted before I could stop them. I found Emily. She was standing now, though not clapping. Her face was white. Lily stood beside her, crying openly. Mark stared down at the table as if the linen napkin held instructions for escape. Around them, people whispered, not loudly, not cruelly, but enough. I knew what they had heard minutes before. Burden, helpless, sneaking around. St. Margaret, old house. Emily had tried to shame me for refusing to sell the very house that had sheltered the women this charity was created to protect. And now that house had entered the room before I ever had a chance to defend it. Rachel stepped towards a small podium where a glass award rested beneath the lights. It was shaped like a flame. Tonight, she said, Haven House Outreach is honored to present the Lifetime Compassion Award to Margaret Miss Maggie Ellis, a woman who taught us that compassion is not a slogan. It is a casserole carried before sunrise. It is a spare key offered in danger. It is a pair of warm hands when the world has turned cold. She turned to me and placed the award in my hands. It was heavier than I expected. For a moment, I could only stare at it. Then the room rose again. This time, the applause crashed over me so powerfully that I had to close my eyes. I could feel Rachel's arm around my shoulders. I could feel my own heart beating against my ribs. I could feel the years inside me, the years of being unseen, corrected, dismissed, quietly useful, but never impressive. Every one of them seemed to stand up with me. When the applause finally softened, Rachel leaned toward the microphone. "Miss Maggie, would you like to say a few words?" I shook my head immediately. The room laughed gently, but Rachel waited. I looked down at the award, then at Lily. My granddaughter was watching me as if what I did next mattered more than anything else that night. And I knew it did. Not the award, not the applause. This. The moment after humiliation. The moment when a woman decides whether pain will make her cruel, silent, or truthful. I stepped toward the microphone. My hands trembled so much that Rachel moved closer, but I lifted one hand slightly to let her know I could stand. "Good evening," I said. My voice sounded small in the large room. I cleared my throat. "I was on my way out." A soft murmur moved through the audience. "I think many of you saw that." I did not look at Emily, though I felt her flinch from where I stood. I was on my way out because I was embarrassed, not by this organization, never by this organization. I was embarrassed because someone I love very much had just said words that hurt me deeply, and I did not know how to remain in the room with dignity. The room went completely still. I heard Lily sob once. I took a breath. But I have learned something from the women of Haven House. I have learned that dignity is not something other people give us when they approve of us. Dignity is something we carry even when our hands are shaking. Rachel pressed her fingers to her lips. I continued slowly. I am not a wealthy woman. I am not a powerful woman. I do not sit on boards. I do not understand sponsorship packages or seating charts. I have never known how to make myself look important. A few people smiled through tears, but I know how to make soup stretch. I know how to sit quietly with a frightened child. I know how to wash sheets without asking questions. I know how to answer the door when a woman has nowhere else to go. My voice grew steadier. For many years, I thought keeping quiet was the same as being humble. Maybe sometimes it is, but sometimes silence lets other people tell the wrong story about who we are. The words surprised even me. I had not planned them. Maybe truth never needs rehearsal. I looked at the crowd, then really looked. If there is anyone here tonight who has been made to feel small by someone who should have loved you better, I want you to hear me. You are not small. You are not useless. You are not a burden simply because someone else cannot see your value. A woman at a nearby table covered her mouth and cried. I touched the glass award with my thumb. I accept this honor not because I need applause, but because the women and children of Haven House deserve to have their courage seen. Every meal I cooked mattered because someone was brave enough to eat after surviving the worst night of her life. Every bed we made mattered because someone dared to sleep without fear. Every key we handed over mattered because someone believed tomorrow could be different. Then I paused. For the first time, I looked at Emily. Her eyes were full now. Not polished, not controlled. Full. I am still a mother, I said softly, and mothers can love their children while also refusing to be diminished by them. Emily's face crumpled. I looked away before my own heart did the same. Thank you, I said, for honoring not just me, but every quiet person who keeps showing up when nobody claps. The room stood again. But this time, I did not close my eyes. I stood beneath the lights, holding the award with both hands, and let myself be seen. When I stepped away from the microphone, the applause did not feel like applause anymore. It felt like a wall holding me up. Rachel took the award from my trembling hands for just a moment and set it safely on the podium. Then she wrapped both arms around me. Not a polite gala embrace, not the kind people give for photographs. She held me the way she had held me once in the pantry after I brought winter coats during a January freeze and admitted for the first time that I missed Henry so badly I sometimes talked to his chair. You did it, she whispered. I don't know what I did, I whispered back. You told the truth. Truth. Such a simple word. Such an expensive thing. The rest of the ceremony moved around me like music heard from another room. Rachel presented a short video of several families helped by Haven House. A mother spoke about receiving apartment keys after months in hiding. A young man now in college talked about remembering a lady who brought pancakes and never asked why my mom cried. A grandmother described sleeping safely in a little apartment behind a yellow house after her son-in-law threatened to take her grandchildren. Nobody said my address. Nobody exposed the women's identities beyond what they chose to share. But everyone understood. My quiet house, the one Emily had called too old and too much, had become the center of a story bigger than property lines. As I sat back down at table 4, no one spoke at first. Lily reached for my hand under the table and held it with both of hers. Her palms were damp from crying. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I squeezed her fingers. Thank you, baby. Mark cleared his throat but did not look at me. His banker friend had moved his chair slightly away from him, not enough to be rude, but enough to be noticed. Emily sat stiffly, her eyes red, her napkin twisted in her lap until the linen looked wounded. For the first time in my life, I saw my daughter with nowhere to hide. No perfect house, no perfect clothes, no perfect table placement, no polished explanation. Her words had escaped into the room before my story did, and now both stood side by side where everyone could see them. The gala resumed with dessert, though very few people at our table touched it. A chocolate mousse sat before me in a little glass cup, untouched and shining under the dim lights. I could feel people wanting to come over, but hesitating. Perhaps they thought I needed space. Perhaps they were afraid of making the family wound more public than it already was. Then table 12 came. Not all at once. One by one. Ben, the volunteer who had teased me about the broken zipper, bent down beside my chair.
"Miss Maggie,"
he said, voice thick.
"you made everybody cry."
That was not my intention.
Still happened.
He smiled through wet eyes.
For the record, I will never argue with you about zippers again.
I laughed, and the laugh surprised me. It loosened something in my chest. A woman named Carla came next. She had once arrived at Haven House with twin boys and a black eye, then later became a receptionist at a dental clinic. She hugged me carefully and whispered, "You told me I wasn't a burden." I never forgot. I had forgotten saying it. That is the strange mercy of kindness. We scatter words like seeds and rarely get to see what grows. An older man approached with a cane. I recognized him as Mr. Alvarez, whose daughter had stayed in the garage apartment for 2 nights during a dangerous custody exchange. He pressed my hands between both of his. "My granddaughter graduates high school next month," he said.
"Because you opened your door."
I could not answer. I just nodded. With every person who came, Emily seemed to shrink further into her chair. Not in humility yet. Not quite. More like someone realizing the map she had trusted did not show half the roads. Finally, Rachel returned to our table. "Margaret, she said there are a few board members hoping to meet you, but only if you feel up to it." Emily's head lifted at the word board.
Old habits die loudly.
Before I could answer, Mark spoke.
"Rachel,"
he said, trying on his professional voice tonight has been very moving.
"Truly, I hope there are no hard feelings about earlier family tension. These things can look worse than they are."
Rachel turned to him slowly. The softness left her face, but her manners remained. "Mr. Parker," she said, "what happened earlier looked exactly as it was." Mark's mouth tightened. Emily whispered, "Mark, don't." But Mark was not a man accustomed to losing control in public. "I simply mean, Margaret can be private to a fault." We were all surprised. Rachel looked at me, then back at him. Surprise does not excuse humiliation. The banker friend looked into his coffee cup as if praying to disappear. Mark forced a chuckle. "Of course not." Rachel's gaze moved to Emily. "Mrs. Parker, I am sorry tonight unfolded painfully. But I will say this plainly because I care about Margaret. The women in our program know the difference between concern and control.
So do we."
Emily's lips parted. No words came. Rachel did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "Your mother has never used your name to gain influence here. She has never used this organization to make herself appear important. In fact, she refused recognition so many times that our staff joked we would have to trick her into accepting a thank you card." A few people nearby smiled. Rachel continued, "She protected your privacy even when you did not protect her dignity." Emily's face crumpled. For a moment, I almost reached for her. Almost. But Lily was still holding my hand, and I remembered what I had said on stage. Mothers can love their children while also refusing to be diminished by them. So I stayed still. Emily pushed back her chair. "Excuse me." She walked quickly toward the side hallway. Mark stood halfway, then hesitated. He looked from Emily to me, then at the cluster of people watching him with polite disgust.
"I'll check on her,"
he muttered. Lily did not move. I looked at her. "Do you want to go with your mother?" She shook her head. No. There was pain in that answer. Not rebellion. Pain. I touched her hair. "She's still your mother."
I know, Lily said, but you're my grandma, and she was wrong. Sometimes children understand justice before adults do. Rachel pulled out Emily's empty chair and sat beside me. For a few minutes, she said nothing. She simply let the room breathe. Then she asked softly, "Are you angry with me? For what?" "For revealing the apartment." I looked down at my hands. "A little." She nodded. "That's fair. But not because it was wrong," I said. "Because now, everything changes." "Yes," Rachel said. "It does." I looked across the ballroom. Donors were still talking. Volunteers were crying and laughing. Board members were whispering among themselves. Somewhere near the stage, a photographer was taking pictures of the glass award. "My daughter wanted me to sell the house," I said. Rachel's expression tightened, but she did not interrupt. "Mark had it estimated. They were discussing liquidation before the gala." Lily sucked in a breath. "Grandma," I regretted saying it in front of her, but secrets had done enough damage already. Rachel's face went very still. "Margaret is the house legally secure. It's in my name. Only your name. Yes. No power of attorney, no co-owner, no trust. Mark controls. No." I hesitated. "At least not yet. Emily has been pushing me to let them help with planning." Rachel exhaled slowly. "Do not sign anything without a lawyer who represents only you." "I won't." But even as I said it, I realized how close I had come to letting guilt guide my hand. A month earlier, if Emily had come with papers and tears, I might have signed something just to prove I trusted her. Just to keep peace. Just to remain her mother in a way she could accept. That thought frightened me more than the gala had. Rachel leaned closer. "We have legal partners who help our clients with housing and safety documents. I can connect you with someone." That thought frightened me more than the gala had. Rachel leaned closer. "We have legal partners who help our clients with housing and safety documents. I can connect you with someone. I'm not one of your clients." "No," she said. "Your family." Family. The word warmed and hurt at the same time. Across the room, I saw Emily standing in the hallway entrance. Mark was beside her, speaking close to her ear. She was not listening. Her eyes were on me. For the first time that night, I did not look away. She started toward the table, then stopped when an older woman intercepted her. I recognized the woman at once, though I had not seen her in nearly 4 years. Her name was Denise Walker. She had stayed in my garage apartment with her teenage daughter after fleeing a husband who controlled every dollar she touched. She now ran a small catering business and sometimes donated meals to Haven House. She was tall, elegant, and had the calm fire of a woman who had rebuilt herself from ashes. Emily clearly did not know who she was. Denise spoke quietly, but I saw Emily's face change with every word. Later, Lily told me what Denise said. "Your mother opened a door for me when my own family told me to go back to a man who hurt me. I don't know what pain you're carrying, but don't confuse your embarrassment with her failure." Emily tried to answer, but Denise lifted one hand. "No, listen. There are women alive because your mother refused to be practical." Then Denise walked away. Emily stood alone. That was when the real turn happened. Not on stage, not during applause. It happened in the quiet moment after everyone had seen the truth, and my daughter had to stand inside it. She came back to the table slowly. Her makeup was smudged beneath one eye. Her perfect hair had loosened near her cheek. For once, she looked like a person, not a presentation. "Mom," she said. The word sounded young. I waited. She glanced around, aware of the room, then swallowed. "I need to speak with you." Mark appeared behind her. "Emily, maybe this isn't the place." She turned on him. "No, you don't get to manage this too." He stiffened. That was the first time I had ever heard my daughter use that tone with her husband. Emily looked back at me. "Please?" I stood. Lily rose too, but I touched her shoulder. "Stay with Rachel for a moment." She wanted to protest, but Rachel gently placed a hand on her back. Emily and I walked to a quiet hallway outside the ballroom. The music was muffled there. The walls were lined with framed prints of the Columbus skyline, all glass towers and bridges shining under artificial light. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Emily covered her mouth with one hand. "I called you a burden," she whispered. I looked at her. "Yes," I said. Her eyes filled again. "In front of everyone?" "Yes, I didn't know. That is not an excuse." She flinched. "I know. But did she?" I was not sure. She looked toward the ballroom doors. "All those people, they know you. They love you." I felt very tired. "Emily, I did not need a room full of people to prove I was worthy of basic respect." The words landed harder than I intended, but I did not take them back. She began to cry, then quietly at first, then with a force that seemed to frighten her. My first instinct was to hold her. That instinct had lived in my body for over 40 years, but I kept my hands at my sides. Because this time, Emily's tears could not become the bridge that carried me back into silence. Emily cried in the hallway with one hand pressed over her mouth, as if she could hold back not only the tears, but every word she had thrown at me. I stood in front of her, close enough to touch her, far enough to protect myself. That distance hurt more than I expected. For years, I had rushed across every distance between us. If Emily was angry, I softened. If Emily was ashamed, I made myself smaller. If Emily was busy, I pretended not to need her. If Emily hurt me, I reminded myself she was tired, stressed, pressured, misunderstood. But standing in that hotel hallway with ballroom music humming behind closed doors and my daughter's public cruelty still ringing in my ears, I realized love had become my excuse for avoiding truth. Mom. But standing in that hotel hallway with ballroom music humming behind closed doors and my daughter's public cruelty still ringing in my ears, I realized love had become my excuse for avoiding truth. "Mom," Emily whispered. I didn't know about the apartment. "No," I said. "You didn't. Why didn't you tell me?" I almost answered the old way. "Because you were busy. Because I didn't want to bother you. Because it wasn't your burden." But the word burden sat between us like broken glass. So I told the truth. "Because you stopped being curious about my life." She flinched. I kept my voice low. "You asked about my clothes, my house, my health insurance, my roof, my grocery habits. You asked what I planned to wear, what I planned to sign, what I planned to sell. But you did not ask what gave me purpose. You did not ask where I went every Saturday. You did not ask why strangers sometimes hugged me at the store." Her tears spilled faster. "I thought you were just doing errands." "I know what you thought." She looked down. "That sounds awful." It was awful. For a moment, the hallway seemed too quiet. Then she said, "I was embarrassed." "I know." Her eyes lifted. "You knew, a mother knows when her child is ashamed of her." Emily's face twisted, and for the first time that night, I saw something deeper than humiliation. I saw grief, not the clean kind, the ugly kind, the kind that realizes too late what it has damaged. "I don't know when I became this person," she said. I did not answer quickly. There was a time when I would have said, "You're not this person. You're good. You're just stressed." But comfort can become a lie when it rescues someone from the consequence of seeing herself clearly.
So I said, I don't either. She covered her face again. Behind us, the ballroom doors opened and Mark stepped out. His expression was controlled, but his jaw was tight. Emily, he said, people are asking questions. We should go back in and manage this. She turned slowly toward him. Manage this. His eyes flicked to me. I mean, handle it appropriately. You mean explain it away. I mean protect your reputation. Emily laughed once, broken and cold. My reputation. Emily, this is not the time. No, she said. Apparently, it should have been the time years ago. Mark's face hardened. Don't do this here? I watched them carefully. In all their years of marriage, I had seen Mark guide conversations with one hand on Emily's back, seen him interrupt her gently in front of guests, seen him translate her emotions into more acceptable phrases. I had mistaken it for partnership. Maybe Emily had too. He stepped closer. Your mother's speech made things emotional. That doesn't mean we need to overreact. Emily stared at him. You wrote potential liquidation before Gala. His gaze snapped to me. I said nothing. Emily's voice shook. You told me we were helping her plan. You told me she was being irresponsible. You told me if we waited too long, she'd lose value on the property or get taken advantage of. Mark lowered his voice. That is true. No, Emily said. You wanted connections tonight. You wanted someone interested in the lot. My stomach tightened. There it was, the part I had feared but not fully seen. Mark looked toward the ballroom doors, then back at Emily. The property is underutilized. My breath caught. Underutilized. Not home, not shelter, not memory, not refuge. A property. Emily looked sick. Women and children were living there. Temporarily, he said, and unofficially, which creates liability, by the way. I felt a chill move through my arms. Emily stepped back from him. That's what you care about. I care about reality. Your mother is elderly. That house needs repairs. The market is favorable. We could structure a sale that benefits everyone. Everyone? I asked quietly. Mark turned to me, and for the first time his politeness disappeared. Margaret, you are sitting on an asset you do not have the capacity to manage? I nodded slowly. There it is. Emily looked between us. Mark, stop. But he had gone too far to retreat gracefully. You may not like my tone, he said, but I'm not wrong. Sentiment does not maintain a property. Good intentions do not cover insurance risk. Letting strangers stay behind your house without formal agreements is reckless. Those strangers had names, I said. And legal exposure, Emily whispered. Oh my God. I looked at my son-in-law. This man who had eaten at my table, accepted birthday cards from me, let me babysit his daughter, smiled while quietly planning around my life. You were going to use the gala to find a buyer, I said. Mark's silence answered before his mouth did. It was exploratory, he said. Emily backed away as if he had become unfamiliar. Exploratory, she repeated. He turned to her. Don't act naive. You knew we needed options. I knew you said Mom needed options. I did not know you were shopping her home before she agreed. She was never going to agree if we let emotion lead. The words should have made me angrier, but instead, they made me clear. I reached into my small black purse and pulled out the folded page I had carried with me that night. The one with his handwriting at the bottom. I had not planned to bring it out. Maybe some part of me knew truth sometimes needs evidence. I unfolded it and held it toward Emily. She took it with shaking hands. Mark's face darkened. That is private financial material. No, I said. It is my house.
Emily stared at the page. Then her eyes moved to the note at the bottom. Potential liquidation before gala. Her shoulders dropped as if something inside her had given way. I trusted you, she whispered to Mark. He exhaled sharply. Emily, don't make me the villain, because tonight embarrassed you. You let me attack my mother while you knew there was more going on. I didn't let you do anything. You chose your words. That was the first honest thing he had said. Emily looked at me then, and I saw the blow of that truth hit her. Mark had influenced, encouraged, framed things his way, but he had not opened her mouth. He had not forced the word burden out of it. She turned back to me, trembling. He's right, she said. I said it. Yes, I said. I said it because part of me believed it. That admission hurt. But it also mattered. I know, I whispered. Emily pressed the page against her chest. Mom, I am so sorry. The words came raw without polish, but I could not let them fix everything just because I wanted relief. Sorry is a beginning, I said. It is not a repair. She nodded, crying silently. Mark rubbed his forehead. This is spiraling. We need to leave. No, Emily said. Emily, no. You can leave. His face tightened. Excuse me, I'm staying. For what? More public humiliation. She looked at him with red eyes. Maybe I deserve to sit with what I did. Mark stared at her for a long moment. Then his expression cooled into something distant and ugly. You're being emotional? He said. Emily gave a small, stunned laugh. That's what you always say when I stop agreeing with you. Mark stared at her for a long moment. Then his expression cooled into something distant and ugly. You're being emotional, he said. Emily gave a small, stunned laugh. That's what you always say when I stop agreeing with you. For the first time, I saw my daughter not as the one holding the knife, but as someone who had been carrying one pressed to her own back for years. That did not erase what she had done to me, but it explained some of the fear behind it. Mark left without another word. The hallway seemed to exhale after he disappeared around the corner. Emily sank onto a bench beneath a framed cityscape. She looked exhausted, stripped of every performance. I thought success meant never being pitied, she said. I sat beside her, leaving a small space between us. Who taught you that? She wiped her cheek. I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I watched you struggle after Dad died and promised myself no one would ever look at me like that. Like what? Like I needed help. I looked down at my hands. Oh, Emily, I said softly. Needing help is not the same as having no worth. She closed her eyes. I know that now, or I'm trying to. The ballroom doors opened again. This time, Rachel stepped out. Her face softened when she saw us sitting together, but she did not interrupt. Behind her stood a woman in a deep navy dress, elegant and composed with silver threaded hair, and a folder tucked under one arm. Margaret Rachel said gently, "There is someone I'd like you to meet when you're ready." The woman stepped forward. "Mrs. Ellis," she said, "my name is Angela Whitmore. I'm an attorney who works with Haven House on housing protections and charitable property transfers." Emily stiffened beside me. The timing felt almost too perfect, but life often waits until everything falls apart before placing the right person at the door. Angela smiled kindly. "Rachel mentioned in very general terms that you may need independent legal guidance. I don't need details tonight, but I want you to have my card." Angela smiled kindly. "Rachel mentioned in very general terms that you may need independent legal guidance. I don't need details tonight, but I want you to have my card." She handed it to me. I took it with fingers that no longer trembled. "Thank you," I said. Angela's eyes moved briefly to Emily, not accusing, but aware. No one should make decisions about a home under pressure, especially a home that has become a place of safety. Emily bowed her head. Rachel looked at me. "You are not alone in this anymore." Those words nearly broke me, because for years I had believed being strong meant handling everything quietly. The meals, the women, the house, the grief, Emily's disappointment, Mark's calculations, my own fear. But strength, I was learning, could also mean letting trustworthy people stand beside you. I looked at Emily. She was watching the attorney's card in my hand, as if it were proof that something had changed forever. And it had. I would not sign anything. I would not sell my home to satisfy someone else's image. I would not confuse my daughter's apology with transformation. But for the first time that night, I allowed myself to hope that maybe the truth had not only exposed Emily. Maybe it had awakened her. When Mark left the hallway, the sound of his footsteps seemed to take the last of Emily's certainty with him. She sat on the bench beside me, staring at the attorney's card in my hand. Her mascara had smudged beneath her eyes. One strand of hair clung to her damp cheek. For once, she did not reach for her compact, did not straighten her jacket, did not try to become presentable before she became honest. "I didn't know he had gone that far," she said. I looked at the card too. Angela Whitmore, attorney at law. Housing protection. Family safety. Charitable property planning. The letters looked plain, but they felt like a locked door finally given a key. "You knew enough," I said. Emily closed her eyes. The words were not cruel. They were true. And truth, when it arrives late, can sound cruel to people who have lived comfortably without it. "I knew he thought the house was a problem," she admitted. "I knew he thought you were too attached. I knew he kept saying someone had to be realistic." She swallowed. "And I agreed with him because it was easier than questioning why he cared so much." Rachel stood near the ballroom doors, giving us privacy while not leaving me alone. Angela had returned inside after telling me she would wait if I wanted to speak later. It comforted me seeing both women nearby. Not hovering, not controlling, just present. That was what support felt like, I realized. It did not grab the steering wheel. It sat beside you and reminded you that your hands still worked. Emily looked at me. "Did you really let more than 20 women stay there?" "Yes." "And children?" "Yes." "Were you ever scared I thought about it?" "Yes," I said. "Sometimes." Her face tightened. "Then why keep doing it? Because they were more scared than I was." She looked away. For a moment, I saw her at 7 years old again, standing in our old kitchen after a thunderstorm knocked out the power. She had cried because the dark seemed too big. Henry lit candles, and I wrapped her in a blanket, telling her darkness was less frightening when people sat together. Somewhere along the way, Emily had mistaken light for perfection. She had filled her life with chandeliers, white counters, glossy invitations, and camera-ready smiles. But none of it had made her less afraid. From inside the ballroom, applause rose again for another donor recognition. The sound felt distant now. Mom, Emily said, "Did Dad know about the house becoming a place for women?" I smiled sadly. He knew before I did. "What does that mean?" "Your father always believed a home should be useful to more than the people whose names were on the deed." Emily's eyes lowered. "I forgot that about him. You were young when he was sick." "I wasn't that young." "No," I said. "But grief makes people remember selectively. Sometimes we keep the parts that comfort us and lose the parts that challenge us." She rubbed her palms together. "I kept the part where he wanted us safe. He did, but I forgot the part where he let people borrow his truck, fixed neighbors' steps for free, kept cash in the glove compartment for anyone who needed gas. My throat tightened. Yes. Emily's voice broke. I turned him into an excuse. I did not answer. She needed to hear herself say it. The ballroom doors opened and Lily slipped out. Her eyes were swollen, but her chin was lifted in that careful way teenagers have when they are trying not to collapse. "Can I come out here?" she asked. Emily looked at me first as if she no longer trusted herself to decide. I nodded. Lily walked straight to me and wrapped her arms around my neck. I held her tightly, feeling her shoulders shake. Emily watched us with a pain I could feel across the small space between us. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered into my hair. "I'm sorry she said that." Emily flinched. I stroked Lily's back. "You don't apologize for someone else's words, but I didn't stop it. You are a child. I'm 14. That still counts." She pulled back, wiping her face. "I don't want to be the kind of person who stays quiet when someone is being hurt." I looked at Emily when I answered. "Then remember how this felt." Lily nodded. Emily leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "Lily, I owe you an apology too." Lily looked at her mother cautiously. Emily's voice shook. "You tried to stop me. More than once. I ignored you, and I made you watch me hurt someone you love." Lily's eyes filled again. "Why were you so mean to Grandma?" There it was. A child's question. Simple. Devastating. Emily opened her mouth, then closed it. No polished answer came to rescue her. "I was ashamed," she said finally. "Not because Grandma did anything wrong. Because I have cared too much about what people think. And when I felt surprised tonight, I turned that feeling into anger." Lily stared at her. "That's not a good reason." "No," Emily whispered. "It isn't." Lily looked down. "You make me scared to mess up." Emily's face went white. I could see that sentence enter her like a blade. What she whispered. Lily twisted the edge of her sleeve. "When I forget things or don't do something perfect, I feel like you stop seeing me and only see the mistake." Emily covered her mouth. I looked away, giving them a small privacy, even though I remained close. This was no longer only my wound. The truth had opened a second door. "I don't want you to feel that way," Emily said. "But I do." The hallway went silent, except for the muted music inside the ballroom. Emily slid from the bench to kneel in front of Lily, not caring about her dress against the carpet. That, more than any apology, told me something had shifted. "I am so sorry," Emily said. "I thought I was preparing you for the world. I thought if everything looked right, people couldn't hurt you." Lily cried harder. "But you hurt me." Emily bowed her head. "I know." Lily looked at me, then back at her mother. "Grandma makes people feel safe." Emily nodded through tears. "She does. You don't." The words landed hard. Emily's shoulders shook, but she did not defend herself. That was the first sign of real change. Not tears, not apologies. The absence of defense. Rachel approached quietly. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Margaret, several of the honorees are gathering for a final photograph." "You don't have to join if you don't want to." I almost said no. Then I looked at Lily. "I'll join," I said. Emily stood wiping her face. "Mom, before you go, do you want me to leave?" I considered the question. A part of me did. A wounded part. A tired part. The part that had walked toward the exit before Rachel called my name. But another part of me knew leaving and staying were not the only choices. There was also distance with dignity, presence with boundaries. "You may stay," I said. but not beside me as if nothing happened. Emily nodded. I understand. I hope you do. I walked back into the ballroom with Rachel on one side and Lily on the other. The atmosphere changed when I entered. Conversations softened. People smiled. Some nodded. A few reached out to touch my arm as I passed. This time, I did not shrink from it. Near the stage, Angela Whitmore waited with a small group of board members. One woman, the board chair, introduced herself as Patricia Hensley and thanked me for my years of service. Another donor said he had already spoken with Rachel about funding repairs to the transition apartment if I was willing. The phrase startled me. The transition apartment, not a liability, not an underutilized structure, not a sales feature, a purpose. I don't know, I said honestly. I need time. Of course, Patricia said. No pressure. No pressure. How different those words felt from everything Emily and Mark had said. The photographer gathered us beneath the Haven House banner. I stood with Rachel and the other honorees holding the Glass Flame Award. My face felt swollen from emotion, and I was sure the photograph would show every line, every year, every tear I had tried to hold back. For once, I did not care. Let the lines show. They had been earned. After the photograph, Angela asked if she could speak with me privately for 5 minutes. I glanced toward Emily, who stood near the back of the room with Lily. Emily did not come forward. She did not insert herself. She simply waited. That mattered too. Angela and I sat at a small cocktail table near the side wall. I don't want to overwhelm you tonight, she said, opening her folder. But Rachel told me enough to know there may be urgency. Me enough to know there may be urgency. Has anyone asked you to sign financial authority property transfer documents or estate planning papers recently? Not yet, but they were moving toward it. Do you have a current will? Yes. It leaves the house to Emily. Has anyone asked you to sign financial authority property transfer documents or estate planning papers recently? Not yet, but they were moving toward it. Do you have a current will? Yes. It leaves the house to Emily. Angela nodded. Do you still want that? The question hit me like a cold wind. For years, the answer had been automatic. Of course, Emily would inherit the house. She was my daughter, my only child. Blood, grief, habit, and love had all pointed in one direction. But now that house was not only inheritance, it was shelter. It was Henry's promise. It was the back gate women had entered when the world gave them no safe doors. I don't know, I whispered. Angela's voice was gentle. That is an answer worth respecting. You do not have to decide tonight, but you should know your options. She explained them plainly. A charitable trust, a life estate, a formal partnership with Haven House, legal protections for emergency housing, insurance structures, a way to keep me in my home while ensuring the apartment continued serving women after I was gone. After I was gone. The words hurt, but they also clarified. I had spent so much energy defending the house from being sold that I had not fully imagined protecting its purpose beyond my own lifetime. Angela slid a card and a handwritten note toward me. Call me Monday. Well, make sure any decision is yours alone. I looked at her. My daughter may not understand. Angela's eyes were kind but firm. Then she will have to learn the difference between being loved and being entitled. I sat very still. Across the room, Emily watched me from a distance. She looked frightened, and I knew why. Something invisible had shifted out of her control. For the first time in years, the future of my house no longer depended on keeping her comfortable. It depended on my voice. And that voice, trembling or not, had finally returned to me. I did not sleep much that night. After the gala ended, Rachel offered to drive me home, but Lily insisted on riding with me. Emily did not argue. She stood beside the hotel entrance under the gold lights, arms wrapped around herself, watching as her daughter helped me into Rachel's car, like the world had turned upside down and no one had given her instructions. Mark had already left. He sent Emily one text, which she read in silence before putting her phone away. "We need to discuss your mother's situation rationally tomorrow." She showed it to me without a word. I looked at the screen, then at my daughter's tired face. "Do you still think this is about my situation?" Emily's eyes filled again. "No." That was all she said. On the ride home, Lily sat beside me in the back seat, her head on my shoulder. Rachel drove quietly, giving us the gift of no questions. The glass award rested in my lap, wrapped in tissue paper. Every time we passed under a streetlight, the edges of it caught the glow and flashed like a small flame. When we pulled up to my yellow house, Lily lifted her head. "This is where they stayed," she whispered. I looked at the garage apartment above the back drive. Its windows were dark. The little porch light glowed the same soft amber Henry had installed years ago. "Yes," I said. "Some of them." Lily stared at it as if seeing my house for the first time. Maybe she was. Rachel carried the award inside and placed it on the kitchen table. For a moment, the three of us stood there in the quiet. The same kitchen Emily had criticized. The same linoleum floor. The same old cabinets. The same refrigerator with magnets from church fairs and Lily's childhood drawings. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. Rachel touched my arm. "Call Angela Monday." "I will." "You promise?" I smiled faintly. "You sound like Henry." "Good. Then listen." After she left, Lily asked if she could stay the night. Emily had texted permission before I could decide. That surprised me. The old Emily would have insisted Lily come home so they could process as a family, but maybe that night had shaken even her need for control. I made Lily chamomile tea and we sat at the kitchen table across from the award. "Grandma," she said, "why didn't you ever tell me about Haven House?" "I wanted to protect people's privacy, but you could have told me some of it." I nodded. "I could have. Were you afraid Mom would be mad?" I looked down at my tea. "There are questions children ask that adults spend years avoiding." "Yes," I said. Lily's face tightened. "That's not fair." "No, it wasn't." She traced the rim of her mug with one finger. "I don't want to grow up and make people afraid to tell me the truth." "Then practice hearing small truths now," I said. "People become safe one response at a time." She thought about that for a while. Then she asked, "Do you forgive Mom?" I looked toward the dark window above the sink. My reflection stared back at me, tired and older than I felt inside. "I love your mother," I said. "That's not what I asked." I smiled sadly. "No, it isn't." Lily waited. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Forgiveness is not a switch you flip because someone cries. Sometimes it is a road. Sometimes it is a door that opens slowly. Sometimes it means you let go of revenge, but you still lock certain rooms until trust is rebuilt." Lily nodded like she was storing the words somewhere important. The next morning, Emily came over alone. No Mark, no garment bag, no folder, no polished speech. She arrived in jeans and a gray sweater, her hair pulled back without styling. She knocked instead of using the spare key. That alone nearly made me cry. I opened the door. "May I come in?" she asked. "May I?" 2 words I had not realized I needed. I stepped aside. Yes, Lily was still asleep upstairs in my guest room. The house was quiet, except for the old clock ticking in the living room. Emily walked in slowly, as if each familiar object had become evidence against her Henry's photograph: the crocheted blanket, the scuffed baseboards, the basket of donated scarves. She stopped at the kitchen table when she saw the award. "I thought I would feel jealous," she said softly. I looked at her. "Do you?" She shook her head. I feel ashamed. I poured coffee for both of us. She did not ask for oat milk or sweetener. She accepted it black, as if she understood this was not the morning for preferences. We sat across from each other. For a long moment, she only held the mug. Then she said, "I talked to Mark this morning." I waited. "He thinks you and Rachel manipulated the evening." I did not react. "He thinks Haven House used you to embarrass donors who don't understand operational realities." He said I let emotion cloud my judgment. That sounds like Mark? Emily nodded. It does. What did you say? Her hands tightened around the mug. I told him I wasn't discussing your house with him anymore. My breath caught. She looked up quickly. I know that doesn't fix anything. No, I said, but it matters. He was furious. I imagine he said I was choosing you over our financial future. And are you? Emily's eyes glistened. I don't want a future built on taking something from you. That sentence sat between us, fragile but real. I looked at my daughter and saw how exhausted she was. Not only from the gala, from years of living inside a life where value had to be proven, photographed, and defended. I need to tell you something, she said. I braced myself. Mark has been pushing me to ask you for power of attorney. The kitchen seemed to tilt. I set my mug down carefully. When he brought it up after your furnace repair last winter, he said it would be easier if we could handle things for you. I told him you weren't incompetent. He said that wasn't the point. My hands went cold. Were there papers? Drafts. Nothing signed, I swear. I closed my eyes. Power of attorney. My house. My bank account. My decisions. My life placed in the hands of people who thought my purpose was impractical and my home was underutilized. When I opened my eyes, Emily was crying again. I should have told you, she said. I should have stopped it sooner. Yes, I said. She bowed her head. I know. No excuses this time. I stood and walked to the sink, not because I wanted water, but because my body needed movement. Outside, the maple tree shifted in the morning wind. A few leaves clung stubbornly to the branches, brown and curled, refusing to fall. I called you a burden, Emily whispered behind me. And all this time, I was letting someone plan how to make you easier to manage. I turned around. Emily, Mark may have pushed, but you had already started seeing me that way. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I know. That is the part you need to face. I am trying. Trying will not be enough. She looked frightened. What do you need me to do? The old me would have softened the question, made it easier, asked for too little, accepted the appearance of change because demanding real change felt unmotherly. But I was learning. I need you to stop speaking for me, I said. I need you to stop managing my image. I need you to stop discussing my property, my health, my money, or my choices with Mark, as if I am a problem on your calendar. I need you to stop speaking for me, I said. I need you to stop managing my image. I need you to stop discussing my property, my health, my money, or my choices with Mark, as if I am a problem on your calendar. She nodded quickly. I will. I need you to apologize to Lily and mean it with changed behavior, not just tears. I will. I need you to understand that my house is not available for your plans. It isn't, and I need time. Her face crumpled, but she did not protest. How much time, I don't know. She pressed her lips together. I am not cutting you off, I said, but I am stepping back. Sunday dinners, for now, will stop. That hurt her. I saw it. It hurt me, too. Those dinners had been painful, yes, but they were also the last ritual connecting us to the family we used to be. Ending them felt like admitting something had died. Emily whispered, "Okay, I will still see Lily. She is welcome here. You may come when invited, not when you decide." "Okay, and you will return the spare key." Her hand flew instinctively toward her purse. Then she stopped. That pause told me how automatic her access to my life had become. Slowly, she opened her purse, took out the key with the little sunflower keychain I had given her years ago, and placed it on the table. The sound of it touching wood was small, but it echoed through my whole chest. Emily looked at the key, then at me. "I hate that I made this necessary." "So do I." She stood wiping her face. "Do you want me to leave?" "Yes," I said softly. "For today." She nodded. At the door, she turned back. For a second, she looked like the little girl who used to wait for permission to run across the yard. "Mom." "Yes, I am proud of you." I held the door with one hand. The words were late. They were not enough, but they were not nothing. "Thank you," I said. After she left, I returned to the kitchen table and picked up the spare key. For years, I thought love meant leaving every door unlocked. That morning, with the key warm in my palm, I understood something else. Sometimes, love means closing a door gently, so the person on the other side learns how to knock. On Monday morning, I called Angela Whitmore. I sat at my kitchen table with Henry's Bible on one side, the Haven House Award on the other, and Emily's returned spare key between them like a small piece of evidence. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. The old maple tree stood dark and dripping its branches bare enough to show the sky. My hands shook when I dialed. Not because I doubted myself, because choosing for yourself after years of being managed feels almost like breaking a law. Angela answered on the third ring. "Mrs. Ellis," she said warmly. "I'm glad you called. I don't know exactly what I'm asking for." "That's all right. We'll start there." By Wednesday, I was sitting in her office downtown, across from a wall of books and a framed photograph of a woman receiving keys to an apartment. Rachel came with me, but only after asking twice if I wanted her there. That mattered. She did not assume support meant access. Angela spent nearly 2 hours explaining possibilities in plain English. No pressure, no shame, no rushing me toward a decision so someone else could relax. "The first priority," she said, folding her hands on the desk, "is protecting your right to live in your home for as long as you choose and are able." I nodded. "The second is protecting the emergency apartment if you want it to continue serving Haven House families." "Yes," I said softly. "I do." Rachel looked down, blinking quickly. Angela made a note. "The third is deciding what happens after your lifetime. That may involve changing your will, creating a charitable trust, or forming a formal agreement with Haven House. But nothing happens without your consent." Your consent. 2 words that felt like medicine. We talked about insurance repairs, zoning, safety procedures, confidentiality, and how to turn something quietly improvised into something legally protected. I learned that good intentions do need structure if they are going to survive. Mark had not been wrong about risk. He had been wrong about using risk as a weapon against purpose. That was a painful distinction. At the end of the meeting, Angela slid a draft plan toward me. "There is no need to sign this today. Take it home, read it, ask questions, sleep on it." I almost laughed. "You mean you don't want me to decide immediately?" "No," she said. "Immediate decisions usually benefit the person applying pressure." Rachel smiled faintly. On the drive home, Rachel asked, "How do you feel?" I watched the city pass by through the rain-streaked window. Like I'm standing at the edge of my own life. That sounds frightening. It is. I held the folder against my chest. But it also feels like the view is clearer from here. That evening, Emily called. For a moment, I considered not answering. Then I remembered boundaries are not the same as walls. A wall keeps everything out. A boundary has a gate, and I still controlled mine. Hello, Emily. Hi, Mom. Her voice was careful. Is this an okay time? Another small knock instead of a key. It is, she exhaled quietly. I wanted to ask how the meeting with Angela went. My first instinct was to soften the answer to give her enough information to reassure her, but not enough to upset her. Then I stopped myself. It went well, I said. I am considering changing my will. Silence. Not angry silence, shocked silence. What does that mean? She asked. It means the house may not automatically go to you. Her breath caught. I closed my eyes, bracing for the old Emily. The accusation, the hurt, the sentence that would make me feel like a bad mother for protecting something sacred. But she only whispered, "Okay." I opened my eyes. Okay, I don't know what to feel, but I know I don't have the right to tell you what to do. I sat very still. That sentence was not redemption, but it was a seed. I haven't made a final decision, I said, but I want the house to continue helping women and children after I'm gone. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Dad would like that. My throat tightened. I think so too. Mom. Yes. I told Mark I won't discuss your property with him anymore. And what did he say? He said I was letting guilt make me irrational. I looked at Henry's photograph. And are you? No, she said, though her voice trembled. I think guilt is the first honest thing I've felt in a long time. That sentence stayed with me after we hung up. Over the next 2 weeks, the story of the gala moved through our town in ways I could not control. Haven House posted a photograph of me holding the award with a caption about quiet service. They did not mention Emily. They did not mention Mark. They did not mention the hallway or the word burden. Still, people talk. At the grocery store, a cashier recognized me and said, "My aunt saw your speech online. She cried." At church, Pastor Elaine hugged me and asked why I had not let the congregation help with repairs sooner. At the pharmacy, a woman I did not know touched my arm and whispered, "My daughter doesn't see me either. Thank you for what you said." Attention changed things just as I had feared, but not all change was harm. One Saturday morning, I arrived at Haven House to find volunteers gathered in the kitchen with tool belts, paint samples, and a list Rachel had titled The Maggie Project. I stared at it. "Absolutely not." Ben grinned. "Too late. The Zipper Queen has been overruled." Rachel laughed. "We received designated donations for the transition apartment. Repairs only. No pressure on you." Angela reviewed everything. I looked at the list. New exterior stairs, updated locks, safer window latches, fire inspection, fresh paint, plumbing repair, a small fund for utilities. Every item was practical. Every item protected the promise. I had to turn away for a moment because my eyes filled. That afternoon, as volunteers carried supplies to my garage apartment, Lily arrived with Emily. I was in the backyard holding a clipboard Rachel had forced on me, even though everybody knew I would rather cook than supervise. Emily stopped near the gate, uncertain. She had asked before coming. That mattered too. Lily ran to me first. Grandma Mom brought sandwiches. Emily lifted 2 paper bags from a local deli. I called Rachel to ask what would be helpful. She said lunch. I looked at Rachel, who pretended to be very interested in a paint can. "Thank you," I said. Emily nodded. "I didn't make anything. I thought about trying, but then I realized this wasn't about proving I could be useful." That almost made me smile. "No," I said, "it isn't. For the next few hours, Emily stayed mostly quiet. She passed out sandwiches. She carried bottled water. She held a ladder while Ben replaced a porch light. She listened when Rachel explained the confidentiality rules. She did not post a picture. She did not ask anyone to praise her. She did not even mention the gala committee. Once I looked over and saw Lily watching her mother with cautious hope. Cautious hope is still hope. Near sunset, Emily found me in the garage apartment. The space was small, 1 bedroom, 1 little bathroom, a kitchenette, and a sitting area with a donated sofa. The walls needed paint. The floor creaked. But sunlight came through the west window in a golden square, and for a moment I remembered Henry standing there with a hammer tucked in his belt, telling me Emily might need this place someday. Emily stood in the doorway. "Can I come in?" "Yes." She stepped inside slowly. "I remember Dad building this," she said. "So do I. I remember thinking it was silly. I told him I'd never live over a garage." I smiled sadly. "You were 19. 19-year-olds say things like that." She touched the windowsill. "He said everyone needs a place to land." My eyes burned. "Yes," I whispered. "He did." Emily turned toward me. "I'm sorry I tried to sell someone else's landing place." I looked at my daughter for a long moment. This apology was different. It did not ask me to comfort her. It did not rush toward forgiveness. It simply stood there, accountable. "Thank you," I said. She nodded, accepting that thank you was all I could give. Then she looked around the apartment again. "What will you call it? I don't know." "I thought maybe—" She hesitated. "Maybe Henry's Haven. Unless that's too much." The name entered the room quietly. Henry's Haven. I pressed one hand to my chest. Emily's eyes filled. "Too much." "No," I said. "It's exactly enough." A month later in Angela's office, I signed the documents. Not under pressure. Not to please Emily. Not because Mark approved. He did not. By then, he and Emily were in counseling, though she had told me little and I had asked less. Their marriage was their work. My boundaries were mine. The documents created a protected charitable arrangement. I would live in my home for the rest of my life. Haven House would legally support and maintain the garage apartment as Henry's Haven, a temporary transition space for women and children in urgent need. After my lifetime, the property would not be sold for profit. It would become part of Haven House's housing program with a small memorial fund in Henry's name. I held the pen longer than necessary before signing. Angela waited. Rachel waited. No one rushed me. Finally, I wrote my name. Margaret Ellis. My signature looked shaky, but it was mine. When I finished, Rachel began to cry. Angela smiled. "It's done." Rachel waited. No one rushed me. Finally, I wrote my name. Margaret Ellis. My signature looked shaky, but it was mine. When I finished, Rachel began to cry. Angela smiled. "It's done." I looked down at my name and thought of the folder Mark had brought the estimate the word liquidation, the way my daughter had once seen my house as a burden and a problem. Now the house had a future no one could quietly steal. That evening, Emily came by with Lily. Invited? Expected. Welcome, but not entitled. I told them what I had signed. Emily's eyes filled, but she smiled through it. "I'm glad." That evening, Emily came by with Lily. Invited, expected, welcome, but not entitled. I told them what I had signed. Emily's eyes filled, but she smiled through it. "I'm glad," she said. "Are you?" I asked. She nodded. "I'm sad too. I won't lie, but I'm glad." That honesty meant more to me than pretending. Lily hugged me so hard I nearly lost my balance. "Grandma Henry's Haven sounds like a place in a story." I looked toward the garage apartment glowing under the porch light. "It is," I said, "but not mine alone. For years, I had thought my legacy was my daughter. Then I thought maybe I had no legacy at all. But standing there, with the rain-washed grass beneath my feet, and the warm light shining over Henry's door, I understood. A legacy is not always who carries your name. Sometimes it is who finds shelter, because you refused to let love die with you. Healing did not arrive like sunlight breaking through clouds. It came like a cautious visitor knocking softly, waiting outside the door, unsure whether it would be welcomed. For the first few weeks after I signed the documents for Henry's Haven, Emily and I did not return to our old rhythm. That was intentional. Old rhythms can feel comforting even when they are unhealthy. Sunday dinners at her house remained paused. She no longer dropped by unannounced. She no longer texted me links to senior communities or boutique appointments or articles about simplifying later life. Instead, she asked, "Can I call tonight? Would it be okay if Lily came by Saturday? Do you need anything, or would you prefer I just check in later?" At first, the questions felt awkward, too careful, almost formal. Then I realized they sounded strange because I was not used to being treated as someone with a choice. Lily came every Saturday morning to volunteer at Haven House. Her first day, she wore jeans, sneakers, and a nervous expression that reminded me of Emily at 16 before her first job interview. Rachel gave her simple tasks, sorting children's books, labeling pantry shelves, folding clean towels. After 20 minutes, Lily whispered to me, "I'm scared I'll do something wrong." I looked at her holding a stack of donated pajamas. "Then do it wrong and learn." She blinked. "That's allowed. It's required." She smiled, and something in my heart loosened. By noon, she was sitting on the floor with Dana's little girl, reading a picture book about a rabbit who lost its way home. The child leaned against Lily's side, as if safety had introduced itself quietly and been accepted. Emily watched from the kitchen doorway. She had come to drop off lunch again, but she did not stay at first. She stood there holding paper bags, looking at her daughter on the floor and me at the stove stirring soup. The old Emily would have corrected Lily's posture or reminded her not to sit on the floor in public. This Emily only stood still, tears gathering in her eyes. Rachel noticed too, but said nothing. After lunch, Emily approached me while I washed dishes. "Can I help?" "You can dry." She took a towel. For several minutes, we worked side by side in silence. Plates passed from my hands to hers. Water ran. Voices murmured in the next room. A toddler laughed somewhere down the hall. Then Emily said, "I didn't know places like this could feel warm." I kept my eyes on the sink. People think shelters are only built from emergency, but the good ones are built from tenderness too. She dried a plate slowly. "I used to think charity was something you supported from a distance. I know, I liked writing checks because checks didn't ask me to change." I looked at her then. She was staring at the towel in her hands. "That's honest," I said. "It's ugly." "Most honest things are at first." She laughed softly through her nose, but there was no humor in it. "I'm trying not to perform remorse." That sentence made me pause. "Who told you that?" "My therapist." I turned off the faucet. Emily had begun seeing a therapist alone. She had told me over the phone the week before carefully, as if afraid I would either praise her too much or ask too many questions. I had done neither. I simply said, "I'm glad." Mark had resisted counseling. Then he agreed to couples counseling after Emily moved into the guest room. That was all she told me. I did not ask for more. There are some rooms a mother does not need to enter. "I don't want to show up here so people will think I'm good," Emily said. "I want to become someone Lily doesn't have to recover from." The words struck me so deeply that I had to grip the edge of the sink. "That is a worthy goal," I said. Her eyes filled. Was I that kind of daughter? I dried my hands slowly. This was one of those moments where love begged me to lie, and healing begged me not to. You became a daughter I had to brace myself for, I said. Emily closed her eyes. I continued softly. But you are not only that. You were also the little girl who brought me dandelions in a plastic cup. The teenager who cried when your father's hair fell out from medication. The young woman who held my hand at his funeral for exactly 3 minutes before fear pulled you away. You are not one thing, Emily, but you are responsible for all of it. She nodded, crying silently. I don't know how to fix it, she whispered. You don't fix it all at once. How then? You tell the truth. You respect the boundary. You change the behavior. Then you do it again tomorrow. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist, forgetting she was holding a towel. That sounds slow. It is. Do you think we'll ever be close again? I looked toward the family room where Lily was laughing with Dana's children. I don't know, I said. Emily accepted that answer, though it hurt her. That afternoon, she stayed and helped organize the pantry. She did not do it perfectly. She put rice bags on the wrong shelf twice. She labeled canned peaches as pears. Ben teased her gently, and I watched her flinch, expecting humiliation. When none came, she laughed at herself awkwardly, but genuinely. Lily noticed. Later, as we drove home, Lily said Mom was different today. Yes, I said. Do you trust it? I kept both hands on the wheel. I trust today, I said. Tomorrow will have to earn itself. Lily nodded. That makes sense. Spring arrived slowly that year. Rain softened the yard and little green shoots pushed through the dirt near the back fence. Volunteers finished the repairs to Henry's Haven by mid-April. The stairs were sturdy now. The locks were safe. The bathroom no longer leaked. The walls were painted a warm cream color, and Lily helped choose curtains with tiny blue flowers. Emily paid for those curtains. Quietly. She gave the receipt to Rachel for records and did not mention it to me until Rachel did. When I asked Emily why she had not told me, she smiled sadly. I'm practicing doing things without needing applause. I thought of my speech at the gala and felt Henry somewhere near. The first family to stay in the newly formalized Henry's Haven arrived on a Thursday evening during a thunderstorm. A mother named Monique, 2 boys ages 9 and 6, 1 backpack each, wet shoes, frightened eyes. Because the apartment was now official, Rachel handled the intake. Procedures were followed. Forms were signed. Safety plans were made. But when Monique stepped out of Rachel's car and looked up at the garage apartment, she began to cry. I'm sorry, she said. I don't know why I'm crying. I stood on the walkway with an umbrella. Because your body found out before your mind did. She looked at me. Found out what? That you can rest. Her boys ate grilled cheese sandwiches at my kitchen table that night while rain rattled the windows. Lily was there, helping the younger one peel an orange. Emily had come by after work with extra socks still in her blazer, and heels, her hair damp from the storm. Monique apologized 3 times for dripping water on my floor. Emily surprised me by kneeling with a towel and wiping the puddle herself. It's only water, she said gently. Monique stared at her as if kindness from a well-dressed stranger was something she did not trust yet. Emily glanced at me. I nodded once. She understood and did not push. After the boys went upstairs with Rachel to settle in, Emily and I stood in the mudroom looking toward the garage. Rain shone under the porch light like silver threads. I used to hate this house, Emily said. I know. I think I hated what it reminded me of. What was that? She folded her arms, but not defensively. More like she was holding herself together. That we struggled. that Dad got sick, that you worked so hard, that I couldn't make my childhood look like the life I wanted later. I listened. I wanted everything polished because I thought if my life looked expensive enough, no one would know I had ever been scared. I thought of the little girl in the thunderstorm. You were allowed to be scared, I said. She looked at me. I know that now. We stood in silence. Then she said, I'm sorry I made you pay for my fear. The words moved through me slowly. Not erasing the hurt, not repairing everything, but reaching a place in me apologies had not reached before. I hear you, I said. Her eyes filled, but she did not ask for more. A few days later, Emily invited me to coffee. Not brunch with people, not a public place where she could be seen being a good daughter, just coffee at a small bakery near my house. I went. We sat by the window. She asked about Haven House, and this time, she listened without steering the conversation back to logistics. I told her about Dana finding a job at a pediatric clinic. I told her about Monique's older boy sleeping 12 hours the first night at Henry's Haven. I told her about Rachel planning a trauma-informed childcare room. Emily cried once quietly. Then she told me about therapy, about perfection, about Mark, about how afraid she was that if she stopped managing everything, her life would fall apart. Maybe I said, stirring my tea, some things need to fall apart before they can stop hurting people. She looked at me startled. Then she nodded. When we left, she walked me to my car. The old Emily would have reached for my elbow automatically, as if age made me fragile. This Emily asked, Would you like my arm? I smiled. No, thank you. She stepped back. That was love too, not the offering, the respecting of the answer. As I drove home, I realized we were not healed. Not fully. Maybe not ever in the way people imagine after a dramatic apology. But something honest had begun growing between us. Not the old closeness built on my silence. Something slower. Something with roots. By the time summer settled over Columbus Henry's Haven, no longer looked like a secret. It still sat behind my yellow house, tucked above the garage, shaded by the old maple tree, and reached by a narrow path of stepping stones. But now, the stairs were sturdy, the porch light worked without flickering, and a small wooden sign hung beside the door. Henry's Haven, a place to land. The first time I saw the sign, I stood in the yard for nearly 10 minutes without speaking. Ben had made it from reclaimed wood. Lily had painted the letters by hand. Emily had sealed it with weatherproof varnish slowly and carefully, as if each brushstroke were an apology she knew better than to say out loud again. No one had asked me for a speech. Thank God. The official opening was not a gala. I had insisted on that. No chandeliers. No round tables. No donors lifting champagne glasses beneath gold lights. Rachel wanted to invite the board, the volunteers, the families who wished to come, and a few community partners. I agreed, only after she promised there would be no stage. There will be a porch, she said. That is dangerously close. She laughed. No microphone unless absolutely necessary. Rachel. All right. One small microphone. I threatened to make her peel potatoes for a month. The morning of the opening, I woke before sunrise the way I always did on important days. The house was quiet. For once, the quiet did not feel empty. It felt expectant. I walked through each room slowly. In the living room, Henry's photograph sat on the mantel, polished and straight. In the kitchen, trays of biscuits waited beside bowls of fruit coffee urns and 2 big pots of soup. On the back porch, folding chairs stood in neat rows under borrowed canopies. Rachel had arranged flowers in mason jars because she knew anything fancier would make me suspicious. I paused by the back door and looked toward the garage apartment. For years, women had come through that path in darkness. They arrived quietly with bruises, hidden children, sleepy fear packed into trash bags and backpacks. They left quietly too often before dawn, heading toward court hearings, apartments, jobs, uncertain futures. Now, for one morning, the path would be walked in daylight. That felt like justice. Lily arrived first, wearing a blue dress and white sneakers. She carried a stack of programs Rachel had designed, though I told her programs were unnecessary. "Grandma," she said, "it's an opening. People need to know what's happening." "I know what's happening. We're eating soup in the yard." She grinned. "That is not what's happening." She hugged me carefully, then stepped back and studied my face. "Are you nervous? A little? Do you want me to stay near you?" I looked at this child who had watched pain, asked hard questions, and chosen tenderness anyway. "Yes," I said, "I would." Her smile softened. "Then I will." Emily arrived 10 minutes later alone. That had become more common. She and Mark were still married but separated inside the same house while they decided what honesty would require of them. He had not come to Henry's Haven. Emily did not make excuses for him. That was another change. She carried a covered dish in both hands. "I made peach cobbler," she said. I blinked. Not bought. Made. The crust was uneven. The filling had bubbled over one side. A patch near the corner looked darker than the rest. It was imperfect in at least 7 visible ways. It was beautiful. Emily gave a nervous laugh. "It may be terrible." "Good," I said. She looked startled. "Terrible cobbler is still cobbler." Her eyes filled and she laughed for real. "I followed your recipe, but I think I rolled the dough too thick. Probably. Mom, what you wanted honesty." She shook her head, smiling through tears. Lily leaned over the dish and whispered, "It smells amazing." Emily looked at her daughter with such gratitude that I had to turn away for a second. Guests began arriving after 10. Volunteers from Haven House board members, neighbors, women who had once stayed in the apartment, children who now stood taller than I remembered. Pastor Elaine came from church. Angela came with a folder she promised not to open unless necessary. Dana came with her children, her hair neatly braided, her smile still shy but steadier than before. Monique came too, holding the hands of her boys who ran straight toward Lily when they saw her. The yard filled with voices. Not the polished murmur of a gala ballroom. Real voices. Children laughing. Women greeting one another. Ben arguing with the coffee urn. Rachel directing everyone while pretending she was not crying already. I stood near the back porch watching it all and felt Henry everywhere. Not like a ghost. Like warmth in the wood. At 11, Rachel tapped the small microphone. It squealed and everyone laughed. "Sorry," she said. "Miss Maggie already warned me against this microphone, so please don't tell her she was right. She knows Ben called." More laughter. Rachel smiled, then her face softened. "Thank you all for being here. Today is not just the opening of a transition apartment. It is the honoring of a promise. Henry's Haven exists because Margaret and Henry Ellis believed home should never be wasted on comfort alone, when it could also become safety." My throat tightened. Emily stood to my right, Lily between us. I felt Emily look at me, but she did not reach for my hand. Not automatically. Not publicly. She waited. I reached for hers. She inhaled softly. Our fingers folded together. Rachel continued. "Some of the families here today know what it means to have nowhere safe to go. Some of us know what it means to be unseen in our own families, our own neighborhoods, even our own mirrors. This place says something simple. You are not disposable, and you are not alone." A woman in the front row began to cry. I recognized her as Denise Walker. Her catering business had provided sandwiches for the opening at cost, though I suspected she had undercharged by half. Beside her stood her daughter, now grown confident wearing a college sweatshirt. Rachel turned toward me. "Margaret, I know you did not want a speech." "That has not changed," I said. The yard laughed. "So, I'll keep this short," Rachel said. "Would you and Lily help cut the ribbon?" "Lily?" I asked. My granddaughter's eyes widened. "Me?" Rachel smiled. "You painted the sign. You earned the scissors." Lily looked at Emily. Emily nodded, tears bright in her eyes. "Go!" Lily and I stepped toward the small ribbon tied across the bottom of the stairs. It was pale blue, the same color as the suit I had worn the night everything changed. Rachel handed us the scissors. Lily's hand trembled. "So does mine," I whispered. She smiled. Together, we cut the ribbon. The applause rose around us, warm and full, but this time it did not feel like a wall holding me up. It felt like a circle, like community, like 1,000 quiet mornings finally allowed to breathe in public. Afterward, people toured the apartment in small groups. There was not much to see, really. A clean bed, a small table, a sofa, a shelf of children's books, towels folded in the bathroom, a kitchenette stocked with tea, soup, crackers, oatmeal, and the kind of snacks frightened children might accept when full meals felt too large. But people stepped inside as if entering a chapel. Emily went up last. I watched her from the yard as she stood in the doorway, one hand resting on the frame. Lily joined her, then waved me up. My knees complained, but I climbed the stairs. The three of us stood in the little sitting room. Sunlight poured through the blue-flowered curtains. Outside, voices drifted up from the yard. Emily touched the back of the donated sofa. I used to think legacy meant leaving something valuable behind. It can. She looked at me. But I thought valuable meant expensive. I said nothing. She turned toward me fully. I don't anymore. Lily slipped her hand into mine. Emily took a shaky breath. Mom, I know I don't get to ask for things to go back to how they were. No, I said softly. They can't. I don't want that now. She looked around the room. How they were was hurting you, and Lily, and me too, even if I was the last to see it. That was true. I want to build something different, she said, slowly, if you allow it. I looked at my daughter. I saw the woman who had shamed me in front of a ballroom. I saw the girl who once brought me dandelions. I saw the mother trying not to pass her fear to her child. I saw the daughter learning to knock. I will allow slowly, I said. Her face crumpled, but this time the tears did not ask me to erase anything. They simply fell. I opened my arms. Emily stepped into them like someone who had been standing outside in the cold for years and did not know whether she deserved warmth. I held her, not the way I used to, desperately, silently willing to absorb every hurt to keep her close. This time, I held her with both love and truth between us. Lily wrapped her arms around both of us. For a moment, 3 generations stood inside Henry's haven, not healed perfectly, not repaired magically, but present. And sometimes, presence is the first honest miracle. Later, after the guests left and the yard grew quiet again, I sat on the back porch with a plate of Emily's peach cobbler. The crust was too thick. The filling was too sweet. The edges were nearly burnt. I ate every bite. Emily sat beside me, nervous. Well, I looked at her. Your father would have asked for seconds. She laughed and cried at the same time. As the sun lowered behind the maple tree, the porch light over Henry's haven flickered on. Not because it was broken, but because the timer had been set. A steady amber glow filled the path. I thought about the gala, the stage, The silence after Emily's insult, Rachel's voice calling my name. I thought about how close I had come to walking out before the truth had a chance to enter the room. For most of my life, I believed being seen did not matter. I was wrong. Being seen by people who only want to judge you can wound. But being seen by people who know your heart can bring you back to yourself. My daughter shamed me publicly, but a charity organization honored me on stage. And in the end, the honor was not the award or the applause or even the sign on the door. The true honor was this. I finally stopped waiting for the people I loved to decide whether I had value. I had value when I was unseen. I had value when I was misunderstood. I had value when my hands were tired. My house was old. My coat was faded, and my daughter could not recognize the woman standing in front of her. And once I remembered that no one could make me small again.